Today is the day. 16 of our players looking to get those final 4 spots in the Royale Masters Gold Edition, where $50,000 are on the line, and of course, that golden ticket. Hello, everybody. I'm Andrew Guy. Joining me, as always, is Joshua AC Sharon, two-time regional champ. What's up, AC? How you doing this Sunday?
I'm doing great. We did the broadcast yesterday and I just fell asleep. I was so excited for all the games. I just got 18 hours of sleep and now we're here.
You've just been sleeping since the end of that broadcast till now. So you're well rested and ready to go. We'll see if these other 16 players are as well. Some of the biggest names in the game. Big-time pros, including our defending world champion Mugi, is in the mix. We're going to hop into the games. We're going to give you guys Sandbox versus Morton in our round of 16. But before we get into the action, we got to talk you guys through a little bit of the business of Royale Masters Gold Edition. AC, tell me about this event, brother.
Well, the first 3 weeks we had qualifiers 1, 2, and 3. The top 4 in total qualification points moved on to the playoffs. But those previous 3 weeks don't matter anymore. This weekend, we had the wildcard open day 1. This is day 2. And the top 4 in the wildcard open are going to move on to the playoffs as well. And then you will have that top 8 making it to the playoffs, battling for that golden ticket.
That's right, and we are playing in the Royale Masters format, which means it is dual mode, it is best of 3, it is single elimination, except when we get to our finals today, it will be a best of 5, as will all of the elimination games next weekend and our grand final. So how does it work? Well, it's pretty straightforward. Dual mode, you come out with 8 cards that you think are going to work really well together. If you win, you cannot use those cards again. If you lose, you can run back that deck as many times as you want, which we've seen really pay off here in Royale Masters. Sometimes in a very successful way. Other times you see that people might just kind of be stuck in a rut with the deck they want to win with, and it ends up costing them. So choose wisely for our format today and this weekend and the last 3 weeks. This is it. This is the last time you'll be hearing at least this very specific format. Day 1 and day 2. Day 1 was yesterday. We had our Swiss bracket. We went 9 rounds yesterday with all of our players, several hundred in the mix, including a lot of people who hadn't shown up for the first 3 weeks because they thought they could make it on through to day 2. However, only 16 remain here in our single elimination best of 3 Royale Masters dual format. And like I said, best of 5 for our grand finals. A lot of money on the line in general in Royale Masters, but today it's a very specific $4,000. We gave away 21 grand through the first 3 weeks. AC, what do we got going on today and next weekend?
Well, with the wildcard open, which is the one that we're doing right now, $4,000 is given away, $1,200 going to first, $800 going to second, $400, $200, $150, and $100 going to 9 through 16. Let's say you can't win any game. That's all right. You're still walking away with $100. And I actually have this fully memorized at this point. You guys are just going to have to trust.
Don't show them the graphic.
You guys are going to have to trust that I'm closing my eyes. With the playoffs, we have $10,000 on a golden ticket, $6,000, $3,000, $2,000, $1,500, $1,000, $800, and $700 going to 8th place. That's going to be the prize money.
And I do have confirmation from our producer. AC did that with a blindfold on, so very impressed. And another thing that's incredibly impressive is our bracket. Like I said, last chance qualifier, wildcard open, we had some of the biggest names in the game showing up to try to get their hands on that golden ticket. In the very top right-hand side, you'll see Siak is going up against Mugi. Mugi is the only person that has a confirmed golden ticket out of the 16 here, but we have Lucas and Ta, Sandbox and Morton, Hire, Garrico, Wallace, and SB. Wallace was a dominant force yesterday. So was Sandbox. SB showed up out of nowhere and just completely ran the tables. And of course, Sosa, our only undefeated player yesterday, an exceptional show. And in this round of 16, we will just be watching the one matchup of Morton versus Sandbox. 2 pretty different stories, though, when you look at their Saturday. Morton qualified, I believe, in the 4th place spot. He went 7-2, whereas Sandbox was perfect all day long until he lost his final set against KK, taking him to 8-1. AC, we're going to hop into the action soon, but based off of what you saw to Morton yesterday and what you saw to Sandbox, how you feeling? What are you thinking? Break it down.
Let's see. With Sandbox, I've followed him on Twitter for a while. I know that, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, he tweeted out that he's not doing content creation for the rest of the year. He just wants to solely focus on competitive. So I think that's given him a slight edge to where he used to be and, to where he's at right now. So I would assume that he probably has the advantage. He's always been great with bridge spam. He's always been great with the drill type decks. Morton, on the other hand, obviously we know how talented he is. I mean, it feels like Morton's just guaranteed top 4 in any competition, but at the same time, I just have so much faith in Sandbox. I have to get a very slight edge to Sandbox.
Yeah, Sandbox was a beast unleashed yesterday, and then talking about Twitter, Morton did post about his consistency, right? Still qualifying in that top 4, like you said, and that's really the best word to describe Morton is consistent. So we'll see if he can push that consistency up to a first-place finish and hopefully a golden ticket for him. But he's got a force in Sandbox here in our game number 1 of our day 2 of our wild card open. Sandbox, bottom of your screen, running Drill. This is like that new version or different version of Drill. Doesn't have Bandit, does have Magic Archer, still has the Bomber. So I'm curious to see if the last 2 cards are just going to be Log and NATO. We'll find out. Morton on the other side of it looks like he's rocking GY.
Yeah, this is going to be possibly the Valk Graveyard variation. Sandbox is just... we've seen slight variations with this, the Bandit for the Golden Knight, the Magic Archer. I actually forgot the swap for the Magic Archer.
Yeah, I can't actually remember what it is either. I think it's maybe just like Skelly's and then they use the Inferno Tower. But, I don't run that Bandit Bomber Drill version that much. I much prefer the Magic Archer version. I think we've seen that the Bandit Bomber version can struggle sometimes in double and triple. Once your opponent has your Drill locked down, there's not really a lot of other ways to get on tower. So Morton going in with his very first graveyard here with only 30 seconds remaining in regulation. Nice NATO to pull everything back. It is NATO and Log as the last 2 cards for Sandbox to defend. And very little damage taken from Sandbox in a good spot elixir-wise, and he's going to turn it around and go right back on offense with this Drill Bomber Golden Knight push.
Yeah, that was a beautiful play right there. Defense was incredible. Like, no damage whatsoever. Arrows not helping the Bomber, but it didn't matter. The Golden Knight was still cleaning up. Just a great spot for Sandbox so far. So Sandbox is going to have no big spell. Morton is going to have the Fireball for the Magic Archer, but also Fireball for the chip. At this point, Sandbox definitely has the advantage, being up 500 HP. But it's definitely still anybody's spot. Morton, now that we're hitting, late double, early triple, that's when he can really turn it on, go in with the candy cart in the back, and then just Skeleton King at the bridge. And then Graveyard, on the tower. That's as simple. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and we'll see Morton very, very good at being patient. He's always been a very methodical player. He's got the first couple minutes locked down, which is one of the things that I've maybe called a weakness in his game. So he played pretty close to the chest with only 1:30 remaining. He has taken some good damage, but he is also playing Graveyard. So you can see already that gap getting closed by just a bit. Bomber plus Magic Archer, though, going to put in a lot of work. And that ability, I understand pulling the trigger on it. I feel like it is the best decision, and it does get the Inferno Dragon on the tower. Wow. That is a huge connection. Wow. Beautiful stuff. The NATO has to be used early. Morton gets the Inferno on. The use of the ability was, when it happened, I kind of called it out. You understand doing it. It's obviously now looking back, it was the right play. And that was a great recognition by Morton, because some people might see the fact that the Bomber's still alive, the Magic Archer's still alive, and they might be scared to pull the trigger on that ability. But that was a great final few moments for Morton.
Yeah, I mean, I totally thought that was going to be a wasted ability. You had the Bomber, you had the Magic Archer, you had the Log. I mean, he over-defended that, and it still got through. That was quite shocking to see. And yeah, Inferno Dragon wreaks havoc on top of the tower, heats up, and gets the tower taken out completely. So just a great game from Morton. And yeah, just full control throughout the entire match. And, that's the value of having Cannon Cart. That's the value of having Zappies.
Yep.
You just eventually overwhelm with just solid defense.
And I love the deck choice by Morton, even in the numbers there, which a big shout out to Royale API for giving us those awesome graphics. And of course, our team here at Royale Masters. But looking at the deck, I love it. It's a heavier deck. It's going to make Morton slow down a little bit. Like I said, sometimes in the early moments, he can get a little ahead of himself. This time, he just pumped the brakes, played it slow, was very patient. And I was going to say, but the game ended so quickly, that the Inferno Dragon was probably going to be a tough thing for Sandbox to wrangle. He didn't have a lot of good ways to reset it. He didn't have a lot of good ways to get damage on it, especially if there was a Skeleton King cannon cart push in front of it, like you were calling out, AC, that Inferno is just so hard to get on top of. I was wondering if it was going to be a problem for Sandbox as the game went on, and that question got answered very, very quickly. So a good start for Morten right here. That's exactly what he needs to do. I'm curious what they'll go to in game number 2. You know, obviously he cannot run back any of those cards, but I think one of the good things is he used the Skeleton King, still arguably, you know, number 2 champion out there. I think Golden Knight really has taken the crown as the best champion. Arrows and Fireball are out, so there's a lot of potential. I mean, those 3 cards that I just said, they all have good splash damage. They all work well against piggies, but we also saw yesterday someone thinking that because Fireball was out, they ran Royal Hogs, they ran into Bomb Tower. I can't remember if it ended up working out for them or not. It felt like there was one instance where it did not, and one instance where it did. So we'll see how Sandbox wants to adjust in game number 2. Probably don't want him to go to Royal Giant though, AC, just because it is, it's so hard, right? Because you expect him to, he's so good with it, but it's also incredibly dominant, so it feels like a tough win condition to stay away from in an elimination game.
Yeah, I love RG, but not necessarily for Sandbox right here. I don't know, it gets weird though, because, you know, at the same time, then you're saying, oh, well, he didn't use RG game 1 or 2. Well, you can't really use it game 3. So we always talk about, you know, I've heard you talk about it all the time, where it's like, hey, game 1, I don't want you to do it. Game 3, I don't want you to do it. Game 2, I'm okay with it.
Okay.
And so game 2, I definitely wouldn't mind him going to that, but it looks like it's just going to be Golden Knight, Ghost, and probably Drill. And then Morten is going to be running those Royal Hogs that you were talking about.
Yeah, nice King Tower activation there for Sandbox early on. That's definitely going to help clean up those piggies, but does take a good amount of damage for it. 400 damage on that tower. And you see the conversation that's been ongoing for a month now between the two of us just really put into practice in this first set. Skeleton King in game 1, Archer Queen in game 2, and then from Sandbox going to Golden Knight here in game 2, just really utilizing those champions. And I think this is a weird deck from Morten, but I gotta be honest, at least right now, I kind of love it.
Yeah, I have no problem with this whatsoever. The Barbs are just a weird card, but they always get a decent amount of value. They always... It's never really going to be the reason why you lose, and then it's a great card for just getting a lot of interactions that wouldn't happen usually. Like, you can stack Barbs on top of a Ghost cannon card push, take them out, and then get, you know, a baby counter push with 1 or 2 alive Barbs, and then throw the Royal Hogs behind it. You can do a lot of things with Barbs that you can't do with other troops, and so while they're not the greatest card, it always feels like they get a lot of value, even without them being that strong themselves.
Yeah, and it's surprising too, because it feels like, you know, Morten opted to, yeah, that was quite the dash. Ice Spirit came out, you thought that Morten might be able to keep Golden Knight at bay, but now having to deal with it, so he has to drop his Barbs. You know, you would think normally with piggies you would see Royal Recruits, but the Barbs, like you said, I think it's weird, but I'm totally okay with it. I think you still have the potential to split in the back or split up high and then get split lane pressure with those piggies, but there is a reason they're underutilized, and we'll see if Sandbox can find a way to abuse that, or if he'll run into a, you know, yellow-haired wall with these Barbs once again there at the bridge.
Yeah, right there. And there we go. That's the counter push that I was looking for. The Barbs plus the Royal Hogs. It's going to be not like an insane amount of damage, but it definitely will get the tower down. Honestly, not as much damage as I was expecting, though. 2164. The body block from the Giant Skeleton was massive. Yeah. And there we go. We do have the push on the left, the push on the right. Not a great position for Morten. Has to use that Firecracker. Can't use, you know, can't use what he wants to, can't use the delivery, and with no log in his deck, it's just so difficult to defend these drills.
Royal Ghost gets a couple shots in there, and I think one of the biggest hindrances to Morten's success thus far has been his Ice Spirit play. It's been twice now where his support unit, whether it was the Firecracker or the second time around, the Archer Queen, just getting dashed on from that Golden Knight. Nice lineup there, pull back with the NATO, does get one shot through with the Magic Archer. Ice Spirit comes down in the spot he wants this time, but still, yeah, no shot. That one Barb up front with a sliver of HP distracted the Magic Archer, but Morten is in a world of hurt with only 80 seconds remaining.
Yeah, when I saw this deck, I was really hoping that it was going to be the mirror variation, and, you know, it still could be. Okay, and there we go. We do see the mirror right there. So wow, that's gonna be a massive chain. Towers down. Yeah, I mean, I like this deck. I think it's really just a bad matchup. I would assume his thought process was Sandbox is in a game 2, a must-win situation. He's gonna run RG, and then he didn't get matched up against RG.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. You know, it didn't have a good way to, you know, stop the RG with the building, but the Barb pile up with the Ice Spirit Firecracker in the back, and of course with the AQ, and you know, even the delivery, right? The delivery is going to come down on top of all those support units behind the RG and at least keep them just kind of locked up for a moment. But yeah, didn't get the matchup he was looking for. This is a 50-50 matchup, not bad. Even with, you know, only 7 cards matching, it was still like a 58-42. And both of these games have been in that 58-60 to 40 matchup range, which is really what you want when you're talking about putting yourself in a position to succeed, putting yourself in a position to outplay. Do you think the deck from Morten was a problem now that the game is over, or do you think it was literally just because he didn't get the matchup that he was maybe looking for, so the synergy of this deck just didn't pay off?
You know, I love the deck. I think there's a lot of positives with it, but I do think the negatives outweigh the positives. I think it was way too easy for him to go against Golden Knight. Drill, even, you know, I mean, you're likely going to win against RG, but, you know, some RG variations are a little bit different than before, and so, you know, they might have Hunter instead, and then the Hunter provides way too much value on defense, and so then they get overwhelmed when, you know, he thought he would be able to defend. So I like the idea. I think this... I forgot who it was. I think it was Schwatzen versus Morten, where he used a weird deck that I didn't really like, but I was okay with it. This time, I think it leans more to he used a weird deck. I really don't like it.
Okay. All right. Interesting. So deck choice from Morten in game number 2 not really paying off. Sandbox abusing the fact that arrows and fireball were out, so Magic Archer got a lot of good value. And then with arrows being out, you would think that Morten might want to throw in one small spell just because drill is everywhere. But again, I think he might have been thinking more about Royal Giant. And then, of course, if he did run into something kind of baity or with the drill, the delivery would have been able to come down. But the delivery just didn't provide enough support on the back end because it was having to be used up high so regularly. So Sandbox did a really good job of making sure Morten's answers weren't available for the pushes he was putting together. Great dual lane pressure. And again, that deck and that style of deck is just so dominant in the meta. I think we have seen a version of it in basically every single best of 3 for like the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks feels like 2 years. I mean, I've seen so much gameplay of it. It's definitely a great deck. But yeah, this tournament meta that we have right here is just brutal because every single set, every single match, you can really know the decks within the first 3 cards.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's looking right now for Morten like we could be seeing minor mortar control with poison. Sandbox is looking like he is going to go to Royal Giant here in game number 3. You know, you can't fault either of them for it because they're both using decks that they are very, very good with. Sandbox immediately goes with the RG here. It's going to be a high Inferno, so it looks like it's going to be more of a minor poison control deck, huh?
Yeah, and I really like that for Morten. That's a great log. Gets the gets the Skeleton King skeletons off the map. Golden Knight will be able to get the dash if he chooses to do so, and there we go. Zappies are taken out. That's a 1 for 4 elixir trade right there. And Morten with guards plus Inferno Tower plus the Golden Knight opportunities. I'll be really interested to see his last card because that could potentially be another support troop, but
yeah, maybe an air support troop. Oh, I was going to say or delivery because I was like, he used it last game, and I think he was looking for RG. And again, with that pile up at the bridge, the delivery is good. And I also know how much Morten loves the Royal Delivery, but he beat me to it. So that's going to be his 8th card on the left side of your screen. You can see the 16 that are unavailable. This is the end of this set, a best of 3 between Morten and Sandbox. One of them is going to move on. The other one gets $100 and a ticket to our 6-stage Clash Royale summer event where they'll be fighting for that golden ticket if they are not able to survive this set. So Mother Witch comes out, nice poison there. Does get rid of the Skeleton King, so that was very, very fortunate. Guards plus Inferno and AC. I think Sandbox is going to have a really difficult time breaking through.
Yeah, I mean, I love the deck choice in this one right here. He's got to be very careful, potentially. I just don't know how Sandbox is going to want to attack this because, you know, he can Mother Witch the guards after logging them off, and, you know, that's going to spawn three hogs from the Mother Witch poison. But even when he gets that, he can't put the RG behind because Morton's just going to defend with a log or a delivery. So you have to have these weird combo attacks where, you know, you have the first wave, then you have the RG, but then you have a second RG, and that's really the only opportunity for him. And I think Morton has too strong of a deck to allow that to even happen.
Yeah, the poisons that he's getting down, taking care of the zappies, getting damage on the Skeleton King every single time because the support has to come in to take care of the miner. I don't imagine Sandbox will just leave a miner on the tower. It's just a lot of damage to take, and it's such a cheap send there that does get so much good damage on that tower. You can see every single time Sandbox is just having to pay attention to these miners. And this time he only gets a Mother Witch out of it, and she gets supported with a Royal Giant up high. Skeleton King ability maybe a second late, so not able to get the distraction on the Inferno, but good damage in on the left-hand side for Sandbox.
Yeah, that, you know, Morton did not panic. It was okay, but the delivery probably should not have been used on the right side.
Yeah.
The Mother Witch did have a little bit of health, and, you know, she can be kind of scary sometimes. But overall, the left side was a lot weaker. He does end up defending quite well, though. And so with 1900 HP, about, you know, 825 HP on the right side after the poison. I mean, with 1 minute left, he's going to be able to get the double RG push up. But I think Morton's defense might be just a little bit too good.
Yeah, we're about to find out. 50 seconds remain. Log comes down for Sandbox to push that Fire Spirit off the board. Poison value in from Morton once again here on that right-hand side, going to clean up the Zappies. But there it is, just like you called. The second RG comes down. A perfectly timed log to clean up the Skellies. Inferno burns that RG down on the left side, which is the more threatening push. But now, RG on the right, still alive. Skeleton King loaded up with souls again on the left, and Morton is getting overwhelmed. Poison defensively, gonna have to get a delivery down, but still, he does have the damage lead by a mile with 358 remaining.
RG will get one shot, but not the second. 730 to 358. Miner on the tower, I don't think, and there we go. He does have to use the Zappies. Log will come down, be able to take out the Mother Wish Fireball. Not going to be enough. Morton going to walk away with the set.
What an absolutely excellent game from both of these guys. Sandbox had to play uphill the entire time. He was really able to innovate his offensive pushes. You know, like you were talking about, he had to get that double RG down. Once we got into triple, he had to figure out ways to change up his defense. The Zappies were just getting zero value throughout most of that game. Most of the time just getting poisoned off the board. And, you know, Morton may be looking for a matchup in game number 2, doesn't get what he wants, but in game number 3, I think he got exactly what he wanted. You can see it is a 50-50 matchup, but if both of these guys play that perfectly, it really does feel like Morton has the advantage.
Yeah, I was very impressed with how Sandbox played that match.
Yeah.
I think he gave himself every opportunity. There was a time where he had the double RG push up. He logged the guard's shield off. He got the Mother Witch value, and he still only got, you know, 300 HP worth of damage. I mean, he did everything. He got double RGs up. He got a single RG up with the Skeleton King in front, popping its ability. You know, the Fisherman on offense to try and yank away the Golden Knight. I mean, everything he could possibly do in that matchup was done. And I mean, even the Tombstone in the back cycle was, you know, kind of smart because then it allows him to really stack the souls for the Skeleton King. I mean, everything was done perfectly from him. And, you know, you can't ask for more, but he's just, you know, Morton is too good, and, you know, the defenses were scary sometimes.
Definitely.
But he was able to do it.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised it's only a 50-50 matchup. I mean, I guess because it is minor poison control, you make one mistake against RG, one defense, as we saw. Like, you know, you were saying Morton didn't panic. There were moments there where you really wanted to hit that panic button. So I think if you're calm, cool, collected, you rely on your minor chip. The poisons you have to be willing to use defensively, like he did a couple times, which really saved him against that Skeleton King. So great job there by Morton. Unfortunately for Sandbox, he is going to be eliminated. Let's check in with our bracket here. in just a moment and see what happened. There was a lot of 2-0s that went on. There was a couple games that did go to game number 3, like we just saw. But Rosen, Lucas just kind of cruised right through their opponents, as did Yuya. So there we go. You can see Lucas 2-0s Ta moves on. Rosen 2-0s Sosa. Unfortunate for Sosa, can keep riding that wave from yesterday. Yuya on the other side, 2-0s Chief Keith. But Wallace does succeed over SB. I think Wallace was definitely the favorite in that set, but SB played really, really great yesterday. I think the biggest surprise that we might be seeing here, AC, is that KK was beaten by Matt.
Yeah, I was I was actually really rooting for KK. I haven't seen him in a lot of competitions recently. I really wanted to see him succeed. But yeah, he's not able to get the win. KK, especially, you know, the past year or two, he's been a phenomenal player, but he hasn't, you know, been in too many competitions where he's really finishing top 5, top 3, somewhere in that range. So yeah, unfortunately, he's not able to do it. And he does get knocked out round number 1. Kind of really unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of KK, and I remember when I was first introduced to him back in 2019 for WCG. That was like the first time that I had really heard his name as like a dominant force in the game. He was supposed to be one of the best mortar players ever. He could play with anything. He was just one of those like golden childs of Clash Royale. Oh. And unfortunately, like you said, over the last couple of years, it feels like he's had difficulty reaching the level that he would really like to be at. He's obviously still exceptional. I mean, he's still in our top 16. He had to play yesterday. He was able to beat Sandbox. But it is just a bit of a bummer, at least as of right now. So we'll see if KK is able to reset, get ready for that summer Clash Fest. I still don't know what we're calling it, so I just call it something different every single time. Yeah. But I'm just going to keep, if anyone knows, I am looking at the chat. If there's like an official name, which I probably should be one of the people that knows it, let me know. So here we go, round number 2 coming your way. We are going to be into our quarterfinals. Rosen versus Lucas, Morton versus Gariko, Mugi versus Matt, Yuya versus Wallace. These are all amazing matchups. And yeah, I mean, good for Matt, our player out of Russia. Again, surprised that he was the one that came out on top, but at the same time, KK just hasn't been doing exactly what he wants here in 2022. Rosen and Lucas. Lucas was a guy that was playing really great yesterday. He's been tweeting a lot about his win rate throughout the entire tournament, how he's had the highest win rate like the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, but he didn't have good opponent win rates. And now he's here. He is in the finals. He is worked through round number 1. How are you feeling about Lucas in 2022? He's come very close a few times, but still hasn't been able to get his hands on that golden ticket.
Yeah, I mean, he, even more so than players like Morton, Lucas really feels like a player who's due for that golden ticket. Yeah. I mean, we all know how talented he is. We all know how seriously he takes the game, how dedicated he is. You know, I don't know. Basically, he was trying to join, I think it was, you know, when we were with Space Station, and Luis would always be telling him, hey man, I want you to play, you know, 50 games with this deck. And then he was, you know, he would respond with, well, what am I supposed to do after that, you know, for the day? Because 50 games was not a problem for him. He was willing to grind. He was willing to put in that work. He wanted to play 5 GCs, and then, oh, well, Luis isn't going to answer me. I guess I'll play ladder for the rest of the day. You know, his competitive drive is obviously not the problem. Yep. And I really feel like this is kind of where, you know, this is where he starts really piling on the wins. You know, he didn't technically have the best win rate achievable. You know, even if he did have the best overall win rate, technically he could have won more games, and I think he knows that, and I think he's going to start winning all those games.
It is fascinating when you talk about his competitive drive, because his competitive drive is you know, right where it needs to be, like you said, but also I think his skill set is exactly where you'd want it to be as well. It's all about all the things coming together. You know, they always say it takes a lot of skill and a little bit of luck to win championships, and so Lucas maybe just needs a little bit of luck from the Clash Royale gods. Rosen CR, Rosen Noble, on the other side of it, an 8.6K player, a 20-win challenge winner. You know, we saw him in the Snapdragon Pro Series in Europe, Middle East, North Africa. He got split 1. He got 2nd place. You know, in the finals in season 1, he got 8th place, and in the split Season 1 Split 2, he got 16th. So he's definitely a guy that can hold his own with the best of them. And of course, last year for the Fall Split in 2021, he won it. He got first place. So Lucas definitely going to have to put some stuff together, especially because right now he's taking some good damage on on the right-hand side there. Spear Goblins plus Skeleton Dragons. And this is a really interesting deck, AC. I mean, Skelly Drags almost feels like it was a mistake and didn't get taken out of the deck.
Yeah, right there. I mean, yeah, Lucas's deck is actually phenomenal. I really love it. The Musketeer instead of the Archer Queen, Mighty Miner instead of, you know, the whatever, you know, the Valk, the potential Golden Knights that you could be using. I actually really like Lucas's deck. On the other side, yeah, Rosen using those Skeleton Dragons, and I guess, you know, you have the bait aspect, and so it kind of makes sense, but really, definitely shocking to see it.
Yeah, I mean, that's like really the only word to use, and you know, it could pay off, but it's just weird, man.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. It really is weird.
And I was going to say, I think the last card for Lucas was that Poison. I've run this deck, you know, being a minor mortar lover, and this deck is very, very good. There was just a moment there where E-Giant was everywhere, so that Mighty Miner wasn't getting a lot of value. Now that the meta has shifted just a little bit, I do like Mighty Miner showing up more and more. And we had seen him more, I think, this weekend than any other weekend, which is still not a lot. But I do like this deck that Lucas has gone to. Nice catch there, the Mighty Miner on the inside. And the mortars have mainly just been used to shoot at each other. But as you can see, Lucas very, very far in the lead here, 15-02. And even lower with that minor chip.
This is a great spot for Lucas. Lucas has fully controlled the game. I mean, really, Rosen had one opportunity, and that was at the beginning of the game. He had so much pressure. He had Skeleton Dragons both lanes. He had, you know, a no-log was in cycle for Lucas, and he had that one big push. But ever since then, it really hasn't been anything impressive on Rosen's side, and that's not his fault. That's not due to, you know, his incompetence or anything. It's solely due to matchup. I mean, Lucas just stacks Musketeers, then he Mighty Miners, then he Mortars on defense. Yep. It's not difficult, but it's certainly the way to play the matchup. He just has no opportunity to get past Lucas's strong defense.
And I was just going to say, the Poison getting a lot of value every single time. The Fire Spirit getting a lot of value. I mean, that's 4 Elixir out of Skeleton Dragons coming down to clean up the Mortar, which was not really a threat anyway, and to mainly distract that Fire Spirit from getting more chip damage on tower. So this time, Lucas does not catch the Miner, but again, look at that. Just the Poison value, the Poison on top of the Skarmy every single time is just devastating.
Yeah, cycling the Skarmy in the back just is certainly not the play. He should have done an opposite lane. He didn't even have the Skeleton King up as well, so that's obviously not something you want to see. Lucas should be walking away with the victory right here. Will likely need to cycle a log, and there we go, does cycle the log on the tower. A gorgeous game from Lucas. I mean, he did counter, but just full control, and no overextension ever, and that's always what you want to see, even when you have the matchup.
Yeah, and you see the matchup numbers aren't really heavily in favor of just Lucas, but those are also not exactly correct. You can see that's a 6 of 8 matching cards, or just WinCon +4, so not going to be a true matchup, and I think the biggest reason is probably because of Rosen's deck. Seeing those Skeleton Dragons in there is really odd. Usually you would have Bats or Dark Goblin, something else cheap that does provide some air support and those bait aspects. It also helps speed up your cycle a little bit. And then he could have played, if he did have the Dark Goblin, he could have played it in front of his King Tower offset to the opposite lane and really caught most of those miners still, so he wouldn't have been forced to play cards. I mean, in the end, like you said, Rosen cycled the Skarmy in the back, which is an obvious, you know, -1 trade for Lucas that is going to get him tower damage, so you take that 10 times out of 10. But then he also cycled his Spear Goblins in the back, and they walked right into the Poison, and then they got taken off. So that's just giving away Elixir to a guy that you do not want to give any advantage to. So now looking at what Rosen did in round number 1. Game number 1 against Sosa, he ran RG with Fisherman, Archer Queen, Lightning, and Royal Ghost. And he won that game against Hog, EQ Cycle, Giant Skelly, and Archer Queen. And then in game number 2 against Sosa, he also ran another, I mean, literally the 2 that you would run, RG, and then game number 2 is the drill deck with Golden Knight, Giant Skeleton, Magic Archer, and NATO. and that was a quick, easy 2-0 for him. So I imagine he will most likely go to one of those two decks that he just succeeded with. And for Lucas, I think if you're up a game going into game 2, you can really do whatever you want. But he could also just run Hog EQ, even though he's known as one of the best Hog players out there. Why not if you have an advantage? But we'll find out. Lucas is also a person I think that has done a very good job with his deck selection and his versatility of decks. Like you were mentioning before with him and Trainer Luis, he was like, he just grinds anything, everything, all day. So I think his skill set is pretty unrivaled, and Rosen does feel like the underdog here, but we'll see if he can bounce back in game number 2. Starting for you guys right now. Pretty solid little battle banner there for Lucas. But on the other side of it, a really nice start here for Rosen. Going to get a few Magic Archer shots in with his piercing damage, and then that kind of walk up and step around there of his dead cannon cart got him on tower once again.
You know, I really liked your idea of using Hog EQ, because I was actually going to say for game number 2 of Morton, I actually really wanted him to use Hog EQ, and I don't know what the matchup was going to be. I think it might have actually been kind of favorable for him. But yeah, Hog EQ, when you're as talented as Lucas and Morton, you can... I mean, really, it's just, do you know the matchup? Because Rosen's deck, you know, I mean, everybody's going to be playing Drill. Everybody's going to be playing, you know, one of 3 different decks. But these players certainly know how to play Hog correctly. And, you know, they will be able to win those difficult matchups. And, you know, going against a stackable deck plus NATO is obviously going to be a difficult one. But yeah, I really like the idea of using it, and that's a beautiful King Tower activation.
Yeah, the timing on that, the placement, just absolutely phenomenal, and that is exactly what you were just speaking of these guys knowing their interactions so very well. Even though this is not Hog EQ, that was still a absolutely beautiful NATO. So we're looking at a relative mirror match here, obviously not exactly, and then you see Lucas get very aggressive there with his Magic Archer. I like that play. I think that's a great heads-up play.
Yeah, forces out the defensive NATO from Rosen, so it's a 4 for 4, plus you got damage, plus you made your opponent spend an extra 3. So yeah, just a brilliant start, or a brilliant play right there from Lucas. And this is going to be tough. I mean, that's the difference between having the Giant Skeleton and not having the Giant Skeleton, having the Bar Barrel, where he can just win every bridge battle. And it just makes it so difficult to really, you know, even set up any pushes, because they're always going to be just sticking the Giant Skeleton at the bridge.
Yeah, that Giant Skeleton would have been really nice for Lucas to have had he run Hog EQ just to pile up in these lanes, let that bomb do the cleanup. I liked what you said yesterday about the Giant Skeleton feeling like a mini champion, and 100% he does. And right now we're going to see that value pay off. Golden Knight might dash far enough away. It does, because the Golden Knight of Rosen comes down. But Lucas still struggling to create any real offense.
Yeah, and usually I say swap lanes, but you can't even really swap lanes because you're going against a Dark Prince deck. So he's certainly in a weird spot. I don't know what his answer should be. I like the idea of, I mean, really, in a perfect world, I like the idea of trying to set up a push, allowing your opponent, once you're in triple elixir, to Giant Skeleton maybe behind the King Tower, and then even trying to NATO it opposite lane, trying to have one big push where there's no Giant Skeleton you have to worry about. But at the end of the day, your opponent still has the Dark Prince, still has the Cannon Cart. I really don't know what the answer is for Lucas.
Yeah, and I honestly think that was a bit of a misplay there by Rosen, just playing the Electro Wizard on top of that Drill. As you can see, bringing the tower all the way down to 17-32. And now Lucas has technically taken the lead with that NATO and Magic Archer shot. And there's really no reason for Rosen to have left the door open that wide for Lucas to just walk right in. And now you see Rosen kind of caught on his back feet with only 40 seconds remaining. I really, truly believe that was the moment that kind of shifted the tides. And now Rosen is just leaking elixir, 10 elixir leads.
Yeah, I mean, Lucas has done a phenomenal job of getting the damage that he needs. Great timing on the Ghost. Ghost is going to hit it at the exact correct timing. Bomb will not be able to take out the Golden Knight. Golden Knight will get the dash, and here we go, 20 seconds left. And again, gets 2 shots with the Magic Archer. That's going to be a third. That's going to be a fourth. Man. That's going to be a fifth.
just beautiful gameplay. And you talk about the mental fortitude, the perseverance that you need to be able to be the best in this game. And that was just some incredible stuff out of Lucas. A nice cheeky NATO at the end by Rosen. And I'm telling you right now, had Rosen spent a little extra elixir on that one goblin drill, he would have probably still been in the damage lead at the end of that game. But he is now eliminated. And I don't know. I'm just surprised, AC. I've never really seen that lackadaisical of a defense on a goblin drill at this level.
Yeah, I mean, I really thought that it would be as simple as you just kind of place troops down. We see that. I mean, look, the sample size is only 11.
I know, but I mean, but still, that's an insane disparity.
Yeah, I mean, it really did feel like a 75-25. The giant skeleton gets plopped down. You have the Dark Prince. I mean, the Dark Prince versus the Ghost, in terms of drill defense, is basically, you know, the Ghost can be NATO'd away. The Ghost can have weird interactions where it doesn't swing, and then it, you know, then it's invisible, and the goblins just go directly to the tower. I mean, really, it comes down to Lucas played the drill 5 times. Rosen only played the drill 3 times, and you need to be cycling those drills because you need that damage.
Yeah. And you know, the Dark Prince, he had it, right? He had the Dark Prince. That's a perfect response to use on those drills. I mean, that's like when you're playing Clash Royale late, you're tired, you're playing against log bait, and then you just keep logging something other than barrels or princesses just because you're just like, you keep forgetting what you're doing.
Yeah, just keep cycling it at the bridge.
You're like, why am I doing this? This is not like, I need to save it for the barrel. And that's kind of how I felt there with Rosen. And even again with that Electro Wizard on top of the drill, I mean, even you could just drop it on top just to mitigate some of the damage. It would have been less, and yeah, your E-Wiz wouldn't have had a good counter push, wouldn't have had much life left or any at all, but you still would have mitigated that damage. And for Lucas, that is a big time confidence boost win. I mean, you look at the numbers and the sample size, you get to say you played through a 70-20 matchup, 70+20 matchup, and then also, he came back from being down. He got down early on. It looked like there was no way to break through, but he had really aggressive magic archers that were really heads-up plays and really excellent NATOs. And Rosen just kind of, I think, got a little too comfortable.
Yeah, it was certainly, you know, the drill pressure was great. The defense was great. But, you know, a lot of credit goes to his magic archer placements and aggressiveness, but also, you know, every time he had Magic Archer in cycle, he played it down. And a lot of decks have that one card where that's exactly what you want to be doing, whether it be a champion or whether it be, you know, the giant skeleton or, you know, the Magic Archer in this specific matchup. It was getting so much value on offense, so much value on defense. Even when it was getting taken out by the bomb from the giant skeleton, it still already got, you know, its 4 elixir worth of value. It still took out 2 troops at the bridge, then helped take out the giant skeleton, and then yes, it was taken out, but you know, it had already done its job, and he was already back to the next magic archer at that point. So just a great job of utilizing the magic archer, and yeah, it's certainly a deserved win from Lucas, and just a great win.
Some great nuggets of information there for you guys watching at home, specifically about certain cards always need to be played when they are in cycle, and that's something that a lot of us can think about as we move forward with our comfort decks, or when we're trying to learn something new, or if you guys are playing the deck or a version of the decks that we just saw, since they are everywhere. I love that little piece of advice from AC. So here we go, Gariko versus Morton. We saw Morton already earlier today. We haven't seen a lot of Gariko, but if you look back at his set against Hired, they did go the distance all 3 games. He lost game number 1 where he ran Royal Giant. It's actually a version of the deck we're looking at right now, but he had he did not have Zappies. He had Mega Minion in instead of Zappies, and he had Tombstone in for Dark Prince, it looks like. So it could, yeah, it still feels like it has to be Royal Giant. And then in game number 2, he was able to beat Higher with a E-Giant, non-mirror E-Giant deck. He had Lightning, Goblin Cage, Mother Witch, Inferno in his E-Giant deck. So a very, very heavy 4.3 deck, 13 elixir to get around. And then his final game he won with Hog, EQ Cycle, Archer Queen, and Valkyrie. No giant skeleton. So that's what Gariko's been up to so far today. And obviously you guys watching were able to catch Morton's first 3 games of the day.
And Morton just going to be running a heavy control deck. Golden Knight will be yanked, but it will get the dash, and it does get the dash on the tower.
And it should. I was going to say, I thought it was going to turn around and get on top of the Princess Tower, but instead goes to the Fisherman.
Okay, there you go. And yeah, I mean, it's just... It always gets to the tower, and I really never expect it to. Here we go, 17 seconds left, finally gets the graveyard off. Fireball will get a ton of value on top of just the Mother Witch. I kind of expected him to wait, and I think that's probably the play that he should have made, because he could have waited till the Mother Witch and the Fisherman were together. But I mean, his defense is so strong where it's not even really necessary for him to make that play. He can just snowball and Mega Minion up, as long as he doesn't get overwhelmed, but I think he should be totally fine.
Yeah, nice defense there. I felt it, you felt it. The overwhelm was coming, but the snowball was a lifesaver to clean up all those skellies. Did allow the Brawler and I believe the Cannon Cart to focus on that Royal Giant. But the dash from Morton and the graveyard from Morton are the two most substantial pieces of damage that have been dealt so far in this matchup. But with 90 seconds remaining, we see the Royal Giant cycled in the back. Skeleton King, same lane, left-hand side. Gurico is looking to put together a push that should hopefully, for him, overwhelm this time.
Yeah, and I really like just taking out the Zappies. The Mother Witch is okay because you have such solid defenses against the potential hog spawned. And also, you don't have that many cards that will spawn hogs.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the Cannon Cart that doesn't spawn whatsoever. You have the Golden Knight, the Brawlers, but you have that potential ability. You can take out the Mother Witch fairly easily.
Oh, wow.
And wow, the Golden Knight does stay alive. 55 seconds left. Morton hasn't gotten that much damage, so certainly the game is not over, but there's been no offensive pressure from Greco's side.
Yeah, there was like 2 Cannon Carts, 2 Brawlers, a Golden Knight, a Mega Minion, all came down in that left-hand lane, and it's just running into a brick wall. And a very sound point about the fact that you don't have to worry about the Mother Witch as much in this matchup just because you don't have as many units that spawn those hoggies. And I really love that Morton has taken advantage of that. Now you see high Zappies here on the right-hand side, almost like predictive Zappies. They get fireballed off the board, but Mega Minion plus Brawler will do enough here to stop that RG once again. So Skeleton King comes down left-hand lane. And this was just a caught between a rock and a hard place here for Gurico. Could not put anything together. Fireball, Snowball comes in, and an immaculate game number 1 there from the German.
Yeah, that kind of gameplay right there from Morton is enough to make a grown man cry. I mean, that was gorgeous. No overextensions. He uses 1 graveyard and he gets, 208 damage, and then realizes that's not the way to play the matchup. The way to play the matchup is defend, 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 and then fireball, snowball at the end of the game. That's just how you play it. Gurico couldn't get any damage, any real push. I mean, he got the Skeleton King ability, fully prepped, and just a defensive snowball and a Cannon Cart was enough to take out that side. The Zappies were unreal on defense, and I mean, that Mega Minion, we're seeing the Mega Minion swapped into so many decks, and it just doesn't make sense why it wasn't in the meta for so long. It gets so much value every single time.
Yeah, I think one of the things about the Mega Minion that's so under-celebrated is its HP. It's tough to get to, it's tanky, and you can really place it exactly where you want defensively every time to snipe those pesky units, those pesky support units off the board. And I could not agree more about the gameplay making a grown man cry, because that was really good stuff from Morton. I love that you pointed out the fact that he only went to graveyard 1 time, realized that wasn't the way to do it. The over defense every single time, he's just burning time off the clock because he's already got the damage lead. And if Gurico does start to fireball log cycle, Morton then can go, okay, cool. So then I'm going to fireball, snowball cycle, and we'll just reset, and I'm still in the lead. I'm going to do that every single time. And there was a couple defenses, maybe really only 2, that felt a little dicey for Morton. Otherwise, it was just pile up those Cannon Carts. There was 19 of these played when you add Cannon Cart and Goblin Cage together. I think it was Goblin Cage 10 times and Cannon Cart 9 times. And that is just a rough stat to look at when you're running Royal Giant. So game number 1 goes to Morton. Morton's been playing great today. He 2-1 Sandbox. He's now doing very well against Gurico. question is what does Morten go to in game number 2? That's where we saw that odd Barbarians Royal Hog deck. And then he went back to minor control in game number 3. I'd maybe love to just see him play control again. He played that also so very well. And when you look back at what Grieco ran today, he did go really heavy in games 1 and 2. RG in game 1, E-Giant, 4.3 E-Giant cycle, though, for game number 2. And then in game number 3, he sped things up just a little bit. It feels like Grieco might be leaning towards the heavier decks.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that Minor Rocket is really going to be the play, but I definitely like that deck a lot. I think it succeeds against the meta quite often. You know, you have the Dark Prince on defense, you have the deliveries, the Rocket, the Inferno Towers if you want to use those variations. And so, you know, I really wouldn't mind seeing that. I want to see Minor Rocket or Hog cycle. You know, it's up to him, so I'm not going to be telling him what to do. But those are the 2 decks that I really want to see from him in game number 2.
I mean, really, we're just wasting time because it could just be drill from both of them again. But
yeah.
the one change though, Morten does not have that Golden Knight available, so that does always work in those drill decks. And if that is the case, where Morten is picking that graveyard deck with Golden Knight over the opportunity to play those drill spam decks, I'm okay with that. Although I literally, it's exactly what we said it was going to be. We were like, let's have this whole conversation about what the decks could be, and it is exactly what we knew it was going to be. It's drill on both sides, Magic Archer with NATO. Morten makes the adjustment, brings out the Valkyrie instead of the Golden Knight. We'll see if that pays off. I think one of the things about the Valk that's great is, yes, it can help clean up these drills, but one of the problems is it can't create a lot of quick pressure. And so Morten allows the Magic Archer to connect, and then because of that, logs too early. And now he finds himself in a very similar situation that Lucas was in last matchup, where you're in a basically mirror match here. Your opponent has the better version of it. Even if he doesn't have the Giant Skeleton, he does have the Golden Knight, which is still the better version. And then Morten makes some misplays early on. So what does he do? Exactly what Lucas did. Get aggressive.
Okay, so I went back into the replay just really quickly. Right there, he allowed one of the goblins to stab onto the tower. Then he played the Fire Spirit because one goblin shot on a Fire Spirit doesn't take it out. The Magic Archer retargeted because of the log onto the Fire Spirit as well, and it mitigated an eventual like 400 HP worth of damage. I mean, that was beautifully done right there in order to take as little damage as possible. And I've seen so many interactions messed up where the Fire Spirit is too early, or it gets taken out when 2 troops are locked onto it. Morten plays it perfectly, and only one shot on it, and it gets, you know, it just saves the game right there.
Yeah, that's that timing is really, really tough to pull off in those moments because it feels like there's a lot going on. The Magic Archer's on the tower. You want to just get rid of those goblins, and Morten really keeps his composure once again. Interesting Magic Archer from him, though. I think he was trying to do the lineup, but he needed to be, I think, 1 or 2 tiles more to the left. I think maybe it was just 1 more tile to the left to hit the Inferno and that Magic Archer. Infernos have been used up high by both of these gentlemen, trying to snipe the Magic Archers off the board.
Yeah, we're seeing a ton of pressure. I mean, it's basically just drill plus Fire Spirit, and then I don't know how either of these players are even getting damage because both players are just playing the Inferno Tower up top, and that's really all that's being done. But right there, we get a couple shots from the goblins, and you know that's how you're going to get your damage.
Yeah, Skelly's just not doing the work that Morten would have liked, and Grieco though misses this NATO pull. Morten goes back on offense opposite lane. This time Skelly's not in cycle, so maybe Fire Spirit has to be used up high. There it is. Fire Spirit is high. Golden Knight goes low. NATO to pull everything back, but a log out from Grieco. Nice play. And beautiful Skelly's there.
Yeah. Both players playing this so well. The dash is used though, so the Inferno Tower will be able to take out the Golden Knight fully. Morten has not been able to figure out a way to get anything to the tower. And so Grieco is just playing this perfectly. The log's coming out always on time. Inferno Tower should not be placed at the bridge, and that's going to be a huge mistake.
Wow.
Morton could lose just because of that play.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he was going for kind of the innovation on the defense. Don't just do the same thing over and over and over again. I don't know if it wasn't, I mean, I feel like it would have been back in cycle by that point, but a odd play by Morton, or maybe just a bad decision being made in that moment. Now down to 927. So now we finally see the Magic Archer coming out offensively in that left-hand lane. Magic Archer plus Fire Spirit plus Drill, but still not going to get a lot. Now this Golden Knight has to be distracted. There it is.
Skeletons. Fire Spirit will be placed on defense. We are going to see the log timing perfectly played. NATO will not work out. So an aggressive NATO that doesn't work is a pretty massive mistake right there. We do see the offensive NATO not going to be able to work out. Log plays perfectly, but it's too little, too late. Grieco's going to walk away with game number 2. And yeah, just never had the opportunity to get the Magic Archer chip. And I don't even think it was the difference between the Golden Knight and the Valk. I think it really was the difference of one player made a few mistakes and one player did.
Yeah, definitely. And you saw even early on, Morton was already having to make some really, really tough plays to stay out of that massive damage deficit. And obviously the matchup's going to be super close here. Its sample size is very small for one, but then when you take away one of the cards, 600, it's straight 50-50. Yeah, so Morton did a really good job with kind of the position that he put himself in for a long time. But unlike Grieco, he didn't get any Magic Archer lineups. That NATO to pull instead of putting the Inferno down allowed for a second Magic Archer to come down. I think that was the other thing that I noticed, was it felt like Morton was maybe just not quite on top of Grieco's cycle the same way that Grieco was on top of Morton's. Grieco always had at least 3 responses that he needed for the drill and still had the Magic Archer working down the opposite lane, whereas Morton, it felt like, got caught off guard a few times throughout that match by the Magic Archer.
Yeah, I was trying to like replay the match in my head and try and figure out the differences and how it worked out. And I think one of the main takeaways is that maybe he was using, I think your perfect defense is always going to be Skeletons, Fire Spirit, then Log. And I think, or Fire Spirit, Skeletons, then Log. And I think the way he was defending was usually Valk on defense. And then it forced him to use the Inferno Tower high. So you're spending 9 elixir per defense. And on the flip side, your opponent is always doing Skeletons, Fire Spirit, Log, and you never have that potential Magic Archer lineup on offense.
That's a great point that you're making there, because I didn't even really think about it, but the fact that Morton was always using that Fire Spirit to support his drill pushes, it would just mean that, like you're literally saying, whether it was the Skellies or the Fire Spirit up high to stop Morton's Fire Spirit, and then whatever down low, Skellies plus Log, or Fire Spirit plus Log every single time, and that just made it really, really easy for Grieco. I think that's a great point that you make. I don't know where else the Valkyrie could have been placed better, even if it's just up high on the bridge on top of the Magic Archer, and then he defends that way, that the Grieco was every single time. Could just have created dual lane pressure that then would have made Grieco have to overspend, and then you can maybe get something out of your drill. So great point that you make there. I see here in the chat, I don't check in with it too often, but someone was asking, can you share the bracket, please? This is a great time to do a little bit of housekeeping as we're between games 1 and 2 here. Guys, go follow Royale Masters everywhere that you can. Obviously, subscribing to this channel, turn on notifications. You do not want to miss our finals next week. $25,000 on the line and a golden ticket up for grabs. But with that Twitter, you'll be able to find their Discord. All of it is Royale Masters. You can see it in the bottom right-hand side of your screen. The Discord will get you to the bracket. We will be showing you guys the bracket again very soon. We're going to get through our quarterfinals. We'll take a quick break. We'll show you the bracket for that. But if you don't want to wait, go follow Royale Masters on Twitter. Go join their Discord, and there's always a link in the chat. I believe his name is Dawson. I've been watching him. He is so on top of everything, keeping everyone informed. He's giving everyone like 19-hour countdowns till this, or 23 hours till this, and he's just really on top of his stuff. I absolutely love it. Even all throughout the day, yesterday, and every day that we've had our open qualifiers, he's telling us exactly what group is starting, what round, when it happens. So if you guys need any information or you have any questions, that's a great place to go, is the Royale Masters Discord. And a big shout out to Tasty Bacon and our admin team, who's been doing an exceptional job. Week 1, there was a couple discrepancies, a couple disputes, as there is with any tournament that starts, but literally every broadcast has been so smooth. So a big shout out to everyone that is putting Royale Masters together. All right, here we go. Game number 3, excuse me, between games 2 and 3 is what I meant to say. Grieco and Morten, Morten and Grieco. Interesting stuff, because I'd say in game number 1, Morten looked like he could not be touched. And then in game number 2, he really felt like he was playing out of sorts. And I'd say the exact opposite thing for Grieco.
Yeah, it was weird. It felt like he didn't know the matchup, and that's not something that we ever say when we're talking about Morten. We can say overly aggressive. We can say, you know, actually, there's not a lot of knocks on the man. He's just very, very good. And then Grieco on the other side, yeah, struggled in game number 1, but game number 2, it was absolute perfection. You know, that's always going to happen with the format that we're using, where you have everything available to you. So, you know, even though it was slight mistakes coming in from the Valks on defense, and potentially, you know, there were other ways to do it, he still didn't, you know, the Golden Knight was on the other side, and that's always going to be difficult. You always have that consistent pressure with the Golden Knight, so that's always going to be scary. But yeah, game number 3, I'm guessing, oh, and there we go, we do see Hog from Grieco. And then Morten is going to be using Mortar.
So, not a bad place for either of these guys to be in at the moment. I'll be curious to see what Grieco's other spell is. If it is Earthquake, then we could see Morten having just a little bit harder of a time defending. The deck that he's running, though, I'll be curious to see if his tanky unit is going to be the Valk once again, or if he decides to change it up. He could even go to Mighty Miner. We'll find out. And there it is.
There it is. Ooh. I was wondering. So he is going to... missed log right there. Not what we want to see from Morten.
Lucky, though. The ability did not pop there for Grieco.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Mighty Miner instead of the Archer Queen variation. I guess Morten saw the success that Lucas had, and he thought that was the correct play so far, up 450 HP overall. And he's always going to be able to get consistent damage, but, you know, the guards are obviously going to be great on defense against these miners when he can't poison as well.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Morten's going to be looking for a lot, especially later on in the game, is just figuring out ways to defend, innovative ways to defend, whether it was like what you guys just saw with the Ice Spirit plus the Mighty Miner, whether he uses the Mortar up high, down low, and then, yeah, just going for minor chip damage once again. And I really like that pullback there to make sure the Giant Skeleton didn't become a threat. That's a really heads-up play that I've seen people making more and more. You know, you don't really see plays like that when Giant Skeleton isn't everywhere in the meta, but now that it is, people have had to figure out great ways to innovate their defenses, and I love what I just saw.
Musketeer will not get a shot because of the freeze. And then it ends up targeting the Ice Spirit when it's within the range of the Crown Tower. So still up 400 HP right here. I mean, these poisons plus deliveries are going to be so effective on these Magic Archers. We do see the Log and the Magic Archer and the Mighty Miner to protect, but this is going to be a lot of damage. Will it get the second shot is the question. With the Snowball's help, absolutely.
Really, really nice snowball there from Grieco. Now we see the Miner go to the front once again, guards to the back once again, but Log ready to go. Already back around to Hog, but that Hog's played in the middle, so Morten can go coast to coast here with that Mortar. Doesn't have to worry about EQ damage on that weaker tower on the right-hand side. But that... he just needs to spend a little bit more defensively, allowing that Hog to get a shot after going to the Mortar with the delivery on the board the whole time. And I believe even an Ice Spirit used, that's just not using your elixir efficiently.
So no poison used offensively. The Musketeer will walk into the range potentially. Okay, and there we go. We do see the Snowball off the tower. Mighty Miner plus delivery plus poison. That is going to be a dead push. But it really, you know, now that we're hitting that 1 minute 30 seconds left, every single push is going to be Hog EQ, Hog EQ, Hog EQ. And it's just whether or not you can get your own damage on offense. And you absolutely can't give up any shots to Hogs.
Yeah, and you know, you look at the way that they're getting damage, you know, Morten, it is Miner plus poison, but that poison's having to be used so regularly to stop the Archer Queen that it's becoming just a lot of Miner plus Logs. And then allowing that shot again, I feel like there's 2 Hog shots that came in that really should not on both those last 2 pushes. And this time, Morten gets the defense on lock, but 964 to 1326. He's got to get some good Miner chip damage in, and he just goes naked poison, Miner to the back, no, Miner to the safe spot.
And there we go. I love that play. We do see the mortar. Has to be very careful about using its ability. And that's another hog shot. 986 to 426. Another hog will come out, and he doesn't have enough.
No, that's it right there. Wow, Morton just getting caught, looking over and over and over. Those hog sents by Rico were just absolutely beautiful, devastating, and it felt like Morton was not wanting to spend a lot on each hog defense so that he could hopefully get some more minor poisons down. But then, you know, he'd find himself he would have to overspend late after the hog got a hit, or when he realized the hog was going to get a hit. And then before you know it, another hog was down. The fact that more hogs were played than miners is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it just comes down to, yeah, I mean, only 2 cannons were played, so, you know, the way he was defending and attacking was basically the same every single time. It was hog, EQ once it hit double elixir, and then just cycling either the giant skeleton in the back. I loved his Archer Queen gameplay because it was always forcing out a poison plus log plus mighty miner plus musketeer. It was always a negative elixir trade because he was so worried about that ability getting popped.
Yeah, and the amount of times that Morton was able to get Archer Queen damage with the poison and Princess Tower damage, I think was just the one time. And then when Grieco recognized the matchup, the Archer Queens were played up high and in a position to where Morton would have to just poison the river, which is not what you want to do, but it is what you have to do. So great stuff there from Grieco. He turns the set around. He goes back-to-back in games 2 and 3. So Morton will be eliminated, unfortunately for the German, but his run, I'm sure, for CRL 2022 will continue on over the next couple of months. Now we have a great matchup between Lucas and Grieco in our semifinals, but we've still got 2 more here in our quarters. Next up, it's Matt and Mugi. And this, honestly, when you look at all the matchups that we've had in our quarterfinals, this does feel like the most, well, I guess Lucas versus Rosen is a tough one, but Rosen was able to beat Sosa, and Rosen also had a great day yesterday. But Matt, on the other side of it, he defeated KK. So this should be a lot of fun. Matt went 2-1 over KK. Mugi went 2-1 over Siak, and that's how we got to where we are now. We've seen a pretty good amount of Mugi lately, and it feels like he's back in fighting form. But you know what? The thing about Mugi is even when he won World Finals last year, it wasn't like we were watching him for several months beforehand, and he was just dominating everything like we've seen Mo Light do. So even if Mugi doesn't play great, or let's say he doesn't win today, first of all, he's already got a golden ticket, and I don't actually think it speaks to where he's at in his gameplay, because I feel like he's kind of done this in the past, where it's like, I'm going to play in this, I'm going to take a little time off, I'm going to do ladder, I'm going to do whatever, and then I'm just going to win World Finals. So Mugi, I think from what we've seen out of him lately, is in fighting form.
Yeah, I think Mugi is a more talented version of SB. Where SB just kind of throws his hat in the ring and then ends up almost making it past round 1, but making it to day number 2 of just a random competition. I saw he tweeted out the other day, or he tweeted out yesterday when he was celebrating his qualification. He was like, yeah, you know, 30 minutes before the competition,
Yeah.
I realized I wasn't doing anything, so why not try it? And with Mugi for this, it's he is obviously going to be, just in terms of raw talent, one of the best players in the world. But then once he's like actually there, he's actually in the right headspace, he's actually practicing, grinding the right decks, he can't be stopped. He's so solid when he's at his best form.
We've seen him give us some of the best of 3 sets over the last couple months. We keep talking about that one where it was Wallace and Mugi. There was another one, I think, last week with Mugi that I can't remember exactly what it was. Maybe it was Mugi and Igor. I think that first set of our finals last weekend, that was incredible. And he has been scary good. His micro is so on point right now. And that's you know, there's certain players we talk about, especially like with Mo Light, we say his micro is perfect, but his understanding of the macro is excellent as well. And I'd put Mugi right there with him. I think his micro and macro understanding and interactions are almost unrivaled, which is why he was the first ever world champion. You know, he walked away with $200,000 last season for a reason. So Matt, you know, when you talk about him on the other side of it, that's a really exciting place to be in. You know, if you're able to beat Mugi in a best of 3 set this far into Royale Masters Gold Edition, I think it's going to make people start to pay closer attention to you every single time that they run into you in a GC match, on ladder, or especially in tournaments.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Let's see. Moogie.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about Moogie, and just whether or not I've seen any mistakes recently from him, and yeah, I'm just trying to like look back in my mind, and he really has been special recently. And there was always, I think it was in one of the earlier tournaments where he did struggle and he like missed cannons and all that. But I just have not seen that from him anytime recently, and it's always amazing. Moogie is definitely, I mean, you know that Moogie's one of my favorite players. But also just Moogie is one of those players when they're in form, it just makes Clash Royale great because they really do play the game perfectly.
So Valkyrie plus Snowball have to come out to defend that barrel. So you see a 4 elixir lead in favor of Matt, but there is a Valkyrie down on the board. So now you find them basically even, but the Mighty Miner will definitely be the successor of this little battle between the two of them. So a cage comes out. So Moogie looks like he is going to go to GY as Matt is going to run a deck that I'm sure a lot of you have either tried or ran into many, many times over the last month. Goblin and Barrel with Mighty Miner and Mirror.
Yeah, and I really like this deck from Matt. It's going to match up actually incredibly well if this is Graveyard. And there we go. We do see the quick time Valk. That's going to be a massive 4 for 4, but also it will have the Valk potential on offense. And then the Zappies at the bridge. This is actually a really great spot for him, but because it's not double elixir, he won't be able to do anything else. I mean, the Mighty Miner won't get the value, but the Dark Goblin still will, and so that's very important to play the Dark Goblin just immediately after.
Nice defense there with the late Snowball. One of the Goblins walks away to the cage, but that allowed the Dark Goblin to connect on the left-hand side. Now that's the lowest tower on the board, 2301. And Moogie just sets up in the same lane.
Archer Queen does get cycled to the left. The Mighty Miner is just getting so much value in this matchup. Yes, you're going to have the Snowball. Yes, you're going to have the Zappies. But, oh, wow, this is way too much arrows value. I thought he was going to be able to pick up both.
Yeah.
So not the case, and it's not going to be nearly as bad as I expected. So yeah, not the end of the world. I really thought that he was going to be able to get both right there.
Yeah, that was great placement by Matt. I'm sure it wasn't an accident. And now you see Moogie go to the back again, trying to time that Valkyrie perfectly, but Matt goes to the inside. So both these guys innovating their defenses and their offenses. You love to see it. Barrel comes down again. That's not even a mirrored barrel, just beating that cycle. And here on the right-hand side, that's a great use. Mighty Miner will get on tower, and it is tanking for those Goblins. And that was a beautiful send there by Matt, bringing that tower all the way down to 1064. Moogie's in trouble.
Yeah, that was a brilliant usage of the ability. One of the best Mighty Miner ability pops that I've seen in a long, long time. He forces the overextension. The Zappies get played all the way on the left instead of in the middle. And because of that, he gets away with popping the ability and swapping lanes. Archer Queen will get 3, almost 4 shots on the tower, so that's obviously not a great spot for him, for Matt. And Matt does not have a big spell. Usually, you know, we have seen this with Rocket, but we have seen this variation as well. And the non-Rocket variation can struggle sometimes at the end of the games if they have great defenses for those mirrored Goblin barrels.
This time we saw the arrows come out on top of the Dark Goblin so that Moogie could get some good graveyard damage in, and he does get a little bit, 1780 to 944, because as soon as those arrows came out, Matt goes, all right, then that's a free barrel for me. Now going opposite lane is Matt, and Moogie doesn't ignore it. I wonder if maybe ignoring that would have been the better play, but also who knows in terms of what's going to come down here defensively. Matt's still sticking to that left-hand side. Moogie not ignoring it, still trying to get that graveyard damage in, and the damage does come through.
Has to be careful about using those arrows because of the potential second Goblin barrel, and he does miss the timing right there. So 509 to 686, 23 seconds. Gets the next Goblin barrel. Again, Snowball coming down. No arrows will come down in time. But I don't know if he's going to be able to get any damage with this Graveyard whatsoever. The Graveyard will come down. No Snowball and cycle. Has to Zappies. And it's just whether or not he gets this damage.
And the damage might be there. I think the damage is there. Wow. He takes the game. Those barrels, I mean, there was non-stop barrels flying, and Mugi doesn't have log. He literally has just snowball and arrows, and the Valkyrie timing was off. That was incredible, man.
Yeah, I don't know how that even happened. I mean, I can't say that he wasn't pressuring enough. There was 8 Goblin Barrels on the map. So, you know, that's obviously not on him. And, you know, the defense wasn't perfect from Mugi. He did miss the timing a couple times. The zappies were always placed on the correct tile placement. So, you know, he wasn't getting as much damage as sometimes people would be giving up. But, yeah, he did a great job of pressuring. But somehow Mugi walked away with the win.
I know. I really don't know how. The fact that you can also mirror a Dart Goblin to help clean up those skellies instead of sending one of those extra barrels. We do have a replay coming in here. Big shout out to Tasty for pulling this. He knew that we were going to want to see it. So there's the first barrel. There's the mistimed Valkyrie. And it looked like it was all over here, AC. But Mugi says no, no, no.
Yeah, I mean, right here, again, goes in with the Goblin Barrels. Tries to get the timing with the Snowball. Does make it back to the arrows. 15 seconds left. It really has nothing to do with overextension. It has everything to do... I mean, that is great offense. Maybe potentially he could have gone in with a double log, but I don't think that was the play. I think Matt played it perfectly, but somehow, some way, maybe you delay with the Goblin Barrels and make sure you have more elixir. Block at the bridge. I don't know. I thought he played it great.
Yeah, it's when it's happening that quickly and the defenses somehow work out, it's really hard to say what could have been done differently. I'm looking at the replay again on my other monitor just to kind of watch how this all broke down. I think the biggest part of it, AC, and it's something that we haven't mentioned, was that double Valkyrie push. The double Valks coming down at the bridge with the graveyard, that first Dark Goblin was just locked up on the initial Valkyrie for so long. Then the second Valkyrie takes out the Dark Goblin and then goes all the way through to the tower, still just being a tank for those skellies and just being a force on the map that you had to pay attention to. So great double Valk there for Mugi. He turns a mistake into something great, right? That Valk wasn't timed correctly, but it did stay on the board for a very long time. So we are seeing here Mugi just barely turns that giant skeleton around. It's going to be RG versus Drill Cycle.
And there we go. This is Clash Royale right here. Drill versus RG Cycle. I was sick and tired of seeing fresh decks. This is what I want to see.
2 decks never seen before at Royale Masters going head to head. We have no idea what this matchup could look like. And a great defense turned into offense there for Mugi, able to get some of that damage back. Ewis doesn't get the final shot, 20-32 to 23-92.
Yeah, this is going to be very difficult to defend, just because the RG not going against any kind of building. Yes, you do have the drill, but that's a fake building, so that doesn't really count.
Right.
And yeah, I like this offensive pressure, but you do have to be careful about that counter push. He's not over defending right here. He's going to allow the Magic Archer chip because he believes that this is the best way, setting up with the RG push, heading into double elixir, but he's not going to have the elixir for it in time.
That giant skelly is that on the tower? It is. I was going to say, it looked like it was. Mugi there making a few misplays, overextending a bit, and then the placement there by the cannon cart allowing the giant skeleton to get on through, down to 213. And no matter what spell Matt's rocking, he's already in a spell cycle situation. Mugi misses the Magic Archer lineup because the giant skeleton doesn't take that last step that he needs. 1588. And now Mugi is going to have to take this earthquake damage and spend on the Archer Queen.
Yeah, this is a perfect spot for Matt. Unless I don't even think anything crazy can happen. I think Matt's defense is going to be way too strong. Golden Knight will come down. It will be able to start dashing. Here, the NATO play could have happened, but we don't see it. Magic Archer will get 2 shots, a third as well. But no NATO up, and Matt's going to walk away with the victory.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really just comes down to the it just comes down to the overextension of that first Magic Archer. Like you said, it was, yes, he's going to get the chip damage, but Matt's just going to eat all of that damage. And, you know, another way to look at taking damage when we talk about min-maxing is you're getting free elixir in that moment because you're not spending it defensively and you are coordinating and orchestrating your push exactly how you want. So Mugi has the matchup with the exact 8-8 matchup, but with the 7-8, it looks like it goes in favor of Matt by just a hair. Either way, though, Matt played that really, really great, and Mugi just got a little ahead of himself early on in this game. You don't have to do that, even though you are going up against RG, and yes, RG does get stronger as the game goes on. But so does that drill deck because you're able to create good dual lane pressure. Once you have more elixir, you can go drill plus whatever in one lane, and then you can try to get something cheeky on the other side, or even if it's just Royal Ghost pressure, just dropping it at the bridge in the opposite lane that has to be responded to. Great game 2 for Matt, and we're going to game number 3. Mugi now in trouble of being eliminated.
Yeah, it definitely felt like the overextension was too massive, and I think that would be because it's a giant skeleton version of the deck. I think maybe if you're using the barbell version or the Dark Prince variation, you will be able to defend a little bit easier, just because you will be able to gain that necessary elixir to take troops out. The 4 elixir could have been, or you know, the Dark Prince could have been played on the RG plus the Fisherman. Instead, it gets kind of weird. And then obviously, you never want to allow a giant skeleton onto your tower. You got to play the cannon cart just a tad bit higher. And yeah, great game number 2 from Matt. It was just really simple. But just a great job of not over defending on the Magic Archer. You know, it takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of skill and game knowledge to not want to over defend and allow that, you know, 500 chip damage from that Magic Archer.
Yeah, and it's fascinating when you think back to game number 1, and I believe you did say it was like maybe he just delays those barrels a little bit, and if he did, we'd be seeing a 2-0 victory for Matt over Mugi. Obviously a photo finish in that first game between the two of them, but had Matt just maybe sequenced his barrels a little bit slower so that the units that cleaned up the first barrel weren't just sitting there for the second, giving that much value to the snowball, Matt may have just 2-0'd Mugi because he was really in control of that first game for a very, very long time. But Mugi was able to steal it, it felt like, and then we go to game number 2, and it's just a dominant performance here by Matt. So Matt having a good day. He takes a game off Mugi in game number 2 in dominant fashion. He beats KK in round number 1. Can he do it? Can he beat the world champion, the defending world champion here as we go into game number 3? And who knows? Because Mugi, you know, for someone who was singing all their praises right before the set started, and then he played exceptional in game number 1, he did make a lot of those mistakes that we were saying are, it feels like he's kind of locking down, but he... yeah, just weird placements and weird overextensions. So here we go, game number 3. Matt going back to Dark Goblin, but not going with the barrel version.
And it looks like Mugi believes that he could have played the matchup a little bit better. Could be going to the exact same deck. Could be using one of the other versions, possibly the Dark Prince, possibly the Barbell. But no, we do see the Giant Skeleton cycled in the back, so it will be Mortar versus Drill. And so Matt is going to have to be very careful of not giving any Magic Archer damage. And then Mugi is just going to have to make sure that he is he's wary of these minion hordes.
Yeah, and you see right there the minion horde getting cleaned up by the Magic Archer plus the Giant Skeleton Bomb. Gives Mugi a great elixir advantage, 2743 to 2907. Royal Ghost working down the left-hand lane here from Mugi, just getting that pressure up. This is kind of what we were talking about in game number 2, that he could have just maybe slow played single elixir a little bit more, use those Royal Ghosts to pressure opposite lane, and he's already creating dual lane pressure here early in game number 3.
Giant Skeleton does get plopped down in front, so 5 elixir in Matt's hand. No NATO together just yet. And there we go. We do see the NATO. The dash will be on the tower.
That cannon card's
and the cannon
too low.
card will log.
Wow. So just as we saw Mugi in game number 2 make a really, not even a really bad play, but just one that was not what he wanted in the placement of the cannon cart, Matt here goes way far back with his cannon cart and allows Mugi to just take that tower with only 48 seconds remaining in regulation. This feels like it's already wrapped up.
Yeah, and then he plays the Skarmy on top of it as well, so that's not what you want to be doing. Cannon Cart will be played low, takes the aggro from the mortar. I like this opposite lane, but I think we're just going to see... Actually, I don't know. I really like this opposite lane. If that miner had gotten the Magic Archer to lock onto that, that could have been even worse, but this is still a great spot for Matt.
Yeah, Matt doing a good job turning something out of nothing here. Does get a lot of damage on that tower, but that cannon cart placement is really hindering him from his success here with 9 seconds remaining. You know, Moogie had excellent Magic Archer placement to snipe all those minions off the board. Fireball came down just a step late, and this is a moment where, you know, Matt's got to be kicking himself a little bit. Feels like he maybe dropped a set that he could have taken, especially because that send there was so strong, and Moogie was not able to defend it.
Yeah, I would have loved to see a prediction miner, whether it be placed all the way to the left or all the way to the right or behind the King Tower, something where you're placing it in a weird spot to try and get the Magic Archer to lock onto the miner instead of potentially the minion horde. That game could have been flipped entirely. He did not have the elixir for it, and it could have been a disaster for him. And instead, it takes out the minions before it takes out the miner, and Moogie can take a sigh of relief. He walks away with a set.
Yeah, that was an odd set for Moogie. Maybe he's just still getting warmed up on the day. Who knows? Or maybe we're just not giving enough credit to Matt. Matt played that great. I loved the timing at the end there with the giant skeleton and then the slight delay so that the skeleton king, there we go, I'm doing it again. Skeleton King was tanking for that minion horde. So, because you and I were both thinking, all right, maybe it's just the NATO back, and then that cleans up the minions, but you could see that the Skeleton King was tanking for it, and then the miner comes in late. I do agree it would have been really great to see that miner catch the Magic Archer, or just place in a weird place, like you said, to at least catch the aggro, even if it did get on top. But that's asking for a lot of things to go your way in those final moments. You know, you did the perfect timing with the Skeleton King and the minion horde. The Magic Archer is offset, and you catch it. I mean, that would have just been all things coming together perfectly for Matt. And then we would have maybe been in a 2-tower game. As you said, Moogie breathes a sigh of relief as we hop into our final game here of the quarterfinals. Yuya and Wallace. And Wallace yesterday was just a force to be reckoned with. He went 4-0 against Mohamed Light and Moogie in back-to-back sets. And watching his gameplay yesterday was just incredibly impressive. So much composure, so much patience, and great understanding of the macro. So this will be Wallace up against Yuya. Yuya looks like he's going to Mortar. Wallace looks like he's going to Drill Spam.
And one last thing I want to point out in that final game, he had not used the Ewas yet. So instead of using the Magic Archer, he had the opportunity to defend with just the Ewas on top. And I'm pretty shocked that he chose to go Magic Archer instead of Ewas.
Yeah, it goes Magic Archer, 30-52 to 28-45. Could be running the version without, but we have seen less and less of that lately. It has been usually the Magic Archer paired with the Ewiz. Although, you know, there hasn't been as much success in the skies as of late, especially with Lava Hound.
So just like in the last set, the Minion Horde is going to be the key to victory for Yuya. But this time, Yuya is going to try and get the victory with the Minion Horde deck. Wallace just going to be running the normal variation. And people are just going with the Giant Skeleton. Not going to try and get tricky, not going to use the Dark Prince instead. They really like that boy that just plops down.
Yeah, and I really do believe there's no reason not to be using the Giant Skelly. So much HP, that Death Bomb, it just gives you so much control for 6 Elixir when used correctly.
Miner will be taken out by the bomb almost entirely, but not quite. Magic Archer almost gets fully taken out before it can start swinging. And Wallace will not allow for the cannon cart, but now, I mean, we are in double elixir, so it's not going to be the end of the world just yet. But that is a fair bit of mistakes right there. And Yuya will be able to stack, but and there we go. I love the split lane pressure right here.
Oh, and the Giant Skeleton played too high. Minion Horde misses. the pull there. So 4 minions plus the miner on that right-hand tower. Now finally enough elixir in the tank for the magic archer to come down. But damage done, and done heavily. 708 on that right-hand tower. Beautiful send by Yuya.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for from the last game. The miner minion horde is the most basic play. I remember everybody thought they were a pro when you knew your opponent had zap, and you would minion horde at the bridge. 1 or 2 would die off, but then your miner would sneak into the back and it would take towers. It certainly was an easier game back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember those days. I loved the miner minion horde combo, and I'm actually, even yesterday when I was playing, I was just thinking, I'm actually happy that this is back. It feels like it's at a different level of skill and usage now, to where it's not just, you know, 5K players rocking the miner minion horde. It's almost like when you're playing it, like, I think it's like around 4K or whatever, you'll see just like baby dragons and goblin barrels to start games over and over.
Yeah.
So now Wallace, oh sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, 115 left. I mean, we're heading into triple elixir, but it's tough. He can't get any damage, but he's spreading troops out. He's forcing fireballs on defense. He could potentially be able to pull something off, and right here he will get the Golden Knight dash onto the tower. Wow.
That was a great dash. Giant Skeleton does turn around to go to the Skelly King, but Golden Knight just living on the tower with the Royal Ghost, with the Goblin drill, and just so much going on. I'm even losing my words. 535 now to 708. An excellent push by Wallace.
Yeah, and I mean, if we had seen a correct Magic Archer placement, he would have been able to win the game. Instead, does not happen. He has to be careful about this locking onto the tower. The bomb does take it out, so not the end of the world right there. NATO plus Ewis, no NATO, no Ewis. Ewis does come down, but it does come down late. NATO back will not get, it does.
And it does get in way of the cannon cart. So now 510 to 476, cannon cart down at the bridge. Magic Archer does line up. Perfect placement there by Wallace, and my goodness, what a game.
How does it not lock onto the cannon cart? That was a brilliant Magic Archer. I have no idea how it didn't lock onto the cannon cart right there.
Yeah.
But after messing up the Magic Archer placement, he does one of the more impressive lineups that I've seen in a while.
Yeah, I'm with you on all of it. I love that I have this pulled up on the other screen. Yeah, the cannon cart is literally 2 tiles away from the Magic Archer, but the Magic Archer just goes placed in the exact perfect spot for Wallace. Let's take a look at the replay here for you guys at home that don't want to just rewind your VOD. Here we go. So this is, AC, I'm going to let you talk because I want to watch.
Okay, 27 seconds left. He is still getting aggressive, so that is exactly what you want for Wallace. Ewis does come down, gets taken out by the cannon cart. The NATO comes down in time, and the cannon cart can't make it to the tower. I thought for sure that it would. Right here is the Magic Archer, and I think maybe the Golden Knight pushed it like a centimeter tile away, and because of that, it is
close.
a difference.
The cannon cart is closer, but
yeah.
Like, I think you're right. I think the Golden Knight pushed it a little to the left, so the placement there from the Magic Archer was literally the only place it could have been on the board to connect, and Wallace just with an incredible come from behind victory after taking that minion horde hit early on, and then all of a sudden Yuya just could not create offense, and the timing on that NATO Ewiz Golden Knight there at the end for the cannon cart to not connect was just incredible.
I mean, great pressure from Yuya throughout the game, but he really could not do anything once it hit that double, once it was starting to get to the triple elixir. And I don't know if he should have gotten more aggressive with miners, if he should have played more defensive minion hordes. I feel like he has no answer for defensive minion hordes.
Yes. I was just going to say, I think defensive mortars and defensive minion hordes was the way to go. When you have that big of a damage lead, you can just spend all of your elixir every single time you get back to 10, spend 7 of it defending, spend 3 of it on a miner. And that's all you have to do, I think, for the rest of that game. But that takes a lot of discipline. And then especially when Wallace starts to put together those pushes, I understand Yuya may be feeling a little bit of pressure, but I agree. The defensive minion horde if it's played in the right place, the worst that happens is the Magic Archer and the NATO are having to be used, and that's still a +2 trade on the minion horde. So because the biggest thing there was that those defensive NATOs and Ewizzes were able to just really control those offensive minion hordes. They weren't really doing much anymore. So I couldn't agree more with you. I think it was just Yuya got a little careless with his defense and wasn't using his best defensive options the way that he should have.
Game number 2, Yuya is no longer going to be using that minor minion horde. He will be potentially swapping to E-Giant, probably currently looking like it could be the heavier version with Mother Witch, Inferno Dragon, and it's a version that I like a lot. I don't know if it's the most effective method. I still really love the E-Giant mirror deck. The quick cycle is so difficult to defend against. Wallace just going to be running what looks to be the Skarmy Poison variation.
Yeah, I love this deck.
Yeah, I mean, not only is it strong, but it's also just one of my favorite versions. I mean, just of any deck. It's just so fun to watch, so fun to play.
So Log comes out here to push that E-Giant away. Now needs to get the Musketeer down. No, he is back around to Mortar. My mistake. Great timing and placement of everything and the understanding there. Wallace goes, all right, if I log back this E-Giant and it still is focused on that sliver of HP Mortar, then I can get back to 4 in time. And again, right there, you see getting back to 2 just in time to deal with that Mega Minion. And the last thing I was going to say about that game number 1 was when you think about the mental state of both of these players, Wallace has got to be riding really high. And Yuya maybe not tilted, but definitely got to be frustrated with how that game 1 ended.
Yeah, and I actually like the deck choices from both players. When you're tilted, E-Giant Mirror, you can't really mess that up. You know, you just cycle E-Giants, you cycle Mirror, and eventually you kind of, you eventually just get there. And then on the other side, Wallace, if you're running hot, you know, you can defend with the mortars, you can over defend, you can try and stack Skeleton King Skellies perfectly. Like there's a lot of opportunities for you to play perfectly. And yeah, I mean, both players are choosing decks that just kind of make sense when you're tilted versus you know, playing well.
I gotta be honest, I'm really surprised that Wallace went in with a minor there, but that's just because he's better than I am. That was just such a good defense. You get 1 E-Giant on the tower, so maybe giving up a little bit more damage than Wallace wanted, but getting that minor on tower, and now getting the bats on tower as well. Wallace is playing this very cleanly, but now he's gonna have to worry about the double E-Giant push once again. No, Lightning comes down to clean up the mortar. So log it back. Trying to just cycle back around to Mortar. You see him using a lot of his cheapest cards. And there it is. Perfect timing again. And the NATO comes in after the dash. So Yuya not getting his timing down, whereas Wallace's has been perfect throughout this game.
Yeah, I mean, that could be the game right there. Just a huge mistake. NATO late. I mean, Golden Knight had already done its dash. And yeah, I mean, I don't think Yuya is playing this game perfectly. I don't think the Bomber should be mirrored in that situation. This Lightning is going to be really late. It's going to allow for a Musketeer to pop its head in, and we're going to see aggression throughout the rest of this game now that we're in triple elixir, and Yuya just will not be able to defend the onslaught that is going to come from this minor deck.
I was just going to say, I think Wallace maybe finally uses his poison, and there it is. It was just a naked poison up front. Minor goes to the back. Now with only 60 HP remaining, there's the second poison, and that was a masterclass. Yes, you can see the left-hand tower is down to 1621, but Wallace was so in control of that game, so on top of his timing every single time. And then any moment where it looked like that E-Giant was going to get to tower, he spaced and timed his units perfectly, was so on top of his cycle, and would get back around to Mortar, which was also placed perfectly close enough to pull the E-Giant time and time again. And I mean, there's really not a lot of ways to chalk this up other than the guy that we're seeing right now, rocking the Tribe Wallace tag, is a threat in the world. He has been playing so incredible this year.
Absolutely. I am very excited to be seeing this Wallace. I'm very excited for him to be making this round, or, you know, the playoffs, making the top 8, because he is so scary. He is so talented. And he is one of those players that is just so fun to watch. He is on that same level. You know, for me, you know, Furkan is amazing to watch because he's so talented with E-Giant, so talented with Beatdown. Wallace is just so talented with every deck. He's, you know, I have 5 or 6 players that I really love watching because they have that one thing about him. Wallace's one thing about him is perfection in sets. It's not perfection in games, it's perfection in sets. And that is so hard to accomplish in a 2-3 game period where you're not making mistakes, you're not making macro mistakes or micro mistakes.
Let's take a look here at the bracket, because while we were so distracted by the incredible gameplay, we actually have our 4 competitors that will be joining Pandora, Tatone, Schwatzen, and Furkan. They will be joined by Mugi, Gariko, Wallace, and Lucas. You can see 2 members from Tribe there, 2 Japanese players to join the other 4. So we have our 8. You guys can start scheming about what those brackets are going to look like, what those matchups are going to look like next weekend. But now we have to move on to our semifinals. You already got your pass to finals next week, so it's all about the cash now. We're going to take a very, very short break from quarters to semis, let these guys re-prepare their decks, look at the competitors that they're going up against, and figure out the best way to get through those best of 3s. But we have our 8 competitors here in Royale Masters Gold Edition. We'll be back in 5. The 8 players for our finals have been set, but there's still glory and gold to be achieved today here, AC. We are in our semifinals. Lucas, Grieco, Mugi, and of course, Wallace. So Mugi going to look for a little bit of revenge yesterday from the qualifiers. And oh, man, this is definitely a conversation that is going to be had next weekend as well. But when you look at these 4 players that are coming in and the 4 that have already qualified, again, Pandora, Titone, Schwatzen, and Furkan, these 4 guys have a much greater legacy, if you will, than those original 4 guys. And I think that's exactly what we wanted to see and expected to see out of the Wild Card Open.
Yeah, you know, one thing that we can point out with that is that week 1 of the bracket, some of these players couldn't play. Lucas was at the LAN competition, and so that, you know, 3 weeks, when it's a 3-week competition, it's important to play all 3 weeks. You can get away with it. You can get, you know, 15 points and just be able to auto-qualify just by winning it all. But that is a tough ask. You know, you want all 3 of those attempts if it's possible. So it does make sense. And I mean, with that, the talent with these 4 players, it is so awesome that we have this last chance qualifier. Because yeah, it's weird to think about, but I would have to certainly give the edge to these 4 over the 4 that have already qualified.
Yeah, and it's not to take away anything from Titone or Pandora or Furkan or Schwatzen. Schwatzen obviously caught in that 4-way tie for 4th place, one that unfortunately for Morton, who was eliminated earlier today, did not make the cut for. We're going to hop into the game here as we keep doing a little bit of housekeeping, but you know, Pandora played really great throughout, incredibly consistent. Titone kind of wowed us. And then, honestly, I think you and I were both blown away by Furkan every single week, week in, week out. So it's going to be an incredible finals next weekend. Royale Masters Gold Edition, $25,000. And, of course, that golden ticket, all going to be given away next Saturday and Sunday. So make sure to set your clocks and turn on those notifications here after you subscribe to the Royale Masters YouTube channel so you guys know when those start. It's going to be a blast. Here we go. Game number 1 between Grieco and Lucas.
Both skeletons spawn, or both skeleton kings spawn their skeletons. 2 minutes flat left in the game. And both players just content with leaking once again. No, Lucas does want to get slightly aggressive. Inferno Dragon will come out from Grieco, so we are going to be seeing a graveyard up top. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it
actually does get the swing.
Yeah, totally worth it there from Lucas. And yeah, you're saying graveyard up top, mortar on bottom, right? And
mortar on bottom. So no RG. That's pretty cool. But we do go back to the tried and true graveyard and mortar. It is, you know, these are 2 of the 5 decks that we could possibly be seeing.
Those are like the second tier of the most used decks, and one of the most frustrating things as a mortar player is to be playing against Cannon Cart. If your opponent is disciplined or on top of their cycle, it can be just a really, really frustrating card that makes your mortar pretty ineffective offensively. So we'll see how Lucas wants to deal with that. And he is going back to this Minion Horde version. We've now seen this Minion Horde version 3 times just today. And to, I guess, no success, right? Because it had the one game where it looked like it was going to win and it didn't work. And there was the first game where it just wasn't played correctly. And here we go. This is going to be try number 3.
Lucas, now the thing is, Grieco does have a slow cycle, so every time he does use the arrows on the Dark Goblin, he will be able to slot the Minion Horde in immediately after. And yes, he will have Fireball with it, but that is just not going to be the most effective method. And right here, Minion Horde on top of the Inferno Dragons, not going to get a ton of value, but I mean, here it is. Arrows out of cycle. The Dark Goblin is able to get a ton of value because of it.
Wow, and that's a really, really nicely placed low Skarmy and high Skelly King to turn everything around. Interaction's perfect there for Lucas. And in control is Lucas and in the damage lead, and now he's going to put together another good offense here. Nice thing here is he's not going to have to worry about that cannon card, and then the arrows will get good value on top of those zappies.
Yeah, I was really thinking that it was going to be able to get the arrows value on the cannon cart plus the zappies, and then we would have been able to see a potential lock, but the Inferno Dragon came anyway, so it didn't really matter. Dark Goblin is targeted onto Okay, onto the Tombstone and then onto the Skeleton King. Thought for a second that it might be targeted onto the tower. Not going to be the case. And Cannon Cart on defense. I mean, this Cannon Cart, we can't stress it enough, one of the best cards in the game by far.
Yeah, it just gets so much value, that double life there. And then even the fact that when the Cannon Cart goes from wheels to immobile, it doesn't spawn a piggy. So it's like even when Mother Witches take Cannon Carts off the board, they have to put in so much work just to get one hog. It really has become one of my favorite cards in the game, and I do love the slow. I also really love the way that Lucas is playing this. He's doing such a good job of just controlling the game by forcing spells out. And then it's always like, well, if he plays this, then this. And if he does this, then that. And then you can see it right there. He played the arrows high, so Dark Goblin went low. Fireball went low, so Minion Horde goes high. And this is what Lucas has been doing all game long.
Yeah, that was a very interesting arrows, trying to get the Cannon Cart off its wheels, but then the Cannon Cart just stays on defense, which is certainly okay for Lucas. And then there's also no arrows for the Minion Horde after you use the Fireball on top of the Dark Goblin. So a big mistake right there, but 2370 to 2209 doesn't matter about mistakes, it matters about action now that we only have 20 seconds left.
Yeah, it's really, really impressive here from Grieco that he hasn't even used his graveyard yet. He's gotten just damage off of, wow, and that's a mortar lock shot for Lucas. That's a big shot there. Now 2104 to 2209 with 10 seconds remaining. Fireball arrows will beat out the minor plus arrows and whoa. Okay. Wow. All right. I know. We were both like, why on earth did he just arrows the left-hand tower when it was the healthier of the two? We need another replay, Tasty. We need you to help our brains. We both just froze there. Cannon Cart came across the bridge. There was a Dark Goblin behind that took out the Cannon Cart that was defending of Grieco's. Then the Dark Goblin stays at the bridge, locks onto the Zappies that are played too high. The arrows came in to clean up the Tombstone. Dark Goblin is still getting value. And then I mean, we have to look at it again, but that was a crazy finish for Lucas, and I don't know how he did it. I'll be 100% honest. I don't know how he was able to get that damage at the end of that game.
Yeah, I immediately went to check the replay, and I mean, all you have to do is play the Zappies up top. What happened was one of the Zappies walked, and it was taken out by the Dark Goblin, and then the other Zappies were targeted. We are going to have this replay, and
let's hop in.
This is exactly what we need to be seeing.
So here we go. You see that it's 2370 to 2209. Tower on the left is at 2500 plus. Skellies get in early to get some damage, and then the arrows come down. And then this is when things start to get crazy, AC.
15 seconds left. He gets very aggressive, and Lucas has no idea that the right tower is at 2104. Still goes in with the mortar. He sees that he's down HP, so he's trying to get aggressive.
Wow.
The mortar gets it just gets the splash onto the tower. 1862 to 1891. Two huge mistakes. One, Lucas, all he has to do is minor arrows on the opposite side and just hope that he gets his minor lock. And then on the other side, Zappy's too close to the tower. You cannot do that. Just spam it at the bridge, spam it in the middle. It doesn't matter about placement when there's 8 seconds left. It matters about just not giving yourself any opportunity to lose in a ridiculous way like that.
Those Zappies did Grieco so dirty. You talk about them coming down after the Skellies are populating or are all over the tower, getting a little bit of damage in, but then they keep the Dark Goblin far enough away, and they also give the mortar the splash shot. So really the defensive card from Grieco was the reason why he ended up losing that game, and Lucas has to feel like he just stole one there. That was an incredible finish, and again, we didn't see the GY like at all. You know, he just got tower damage from spells, chip here and there, you know, one card or two cards getting through every now and then, but like that was a very well played game by Grieco until that final Zappies placement.
Yeah, I mean, I really think besides the Zappies placement, there was one arrows that I didn't really like, and other than that, it was perfection from him. Never getting aggressive, never placing down your win condition is certainly the definition of never getting too aggressive.
Yeah.
And yeah, he played it very well. And then one huge, massive mistake at the end flips it entirely. And on the other side, Lucas, I mean, that was the biggest mistake that I've seen from him in the past months to not recognize that the right tower is lower.
You know, it's hard to call it a mistake though, right? Because somehow it worked out, you know, it paid off. You know, the Dark Goblin got so much value there, but I couldn't agree more. We both just kind of like deer in the headlights when he arrows the left tower with the miner, because we were looking at the right-hand tower. But, you know, I've said it before, and it sucks that you have to be in this conversation now, AC, but there's a reason we're up here and they're playing.
No, I'm not gonna allow it. I'm not gonna allow it. He should have gone to the right side.
All right, here we go. Game number 2. Lucas steals game number 1 in those final moments. The mortar Kobe shot, you love to see it. And now Gariko goes, all right, fine. You want to run that deck? I'm going to run that deck.
Yeah, and I get that he won, but I'm honestly not a huge fan of the deck overall. It's had very limited success. I think it matches up well against RG, and that's the reason why it can be a deck that's used. But we're not seeing RG be used at all today. So there's really no need to. I mean, we are seeing it still 20% of the time, which feels like not at all compared to where we usually see it. But yeah, I feel like this might not be the deck to use for today's meta.
And just a handful of interactions going awry there for Lucas. He misses the predictive log. I was actually thinking this was going to be Hog, just because of what we've seen already out of Lucas, but he goes with the Expo. So fascinating turn here. And that is not going to be a lock, but it is fun to watch Lucas play Expo. We'll see how the rest of this game goes. But I was saying earlier, there was the missed log prediction on top of the Skarmy for the AQ, and then that cannon cart had just enough HP because of the missed log that the AQ was focused on the Skarmy and then hit the cannon cart down to almost low enough, but then Lucas had to use the Skellies defensively, and now he just takes that rocket value where he can.
Does pop the ability. Skeletons will come out perfectly placed on top of the Dark Goblin. Fire Spirit will help out. And no Skellies in cycle, so he is forced to use the cannon defensively. Tower will be able to take out the minions before they get any swings on that tower. And indeed, it is player. Yeah, the tower does take out the minion horde before they can start swinging away on the tower.
So Fireball in this deck instead of arrows. So that actually works out very, very well here for Gariko, being able to take care of these defensive expos a little bit more quickly. Now Rocket goes out in the opposite direction. And you can see the tower damage from Lucas is a couple of rockets, whereas the tower damage from Gariko is coming from a lot of different ways, and he does have the lead.
Archer Queen does not get to the tower, instead targets onto the mortar. Expo placed outside of the range where you can fireball the left side plus the Expo. And it will be able to take out the cannon cart before it gets within range, but okay, and there we go. We do see the Valk placed perfectly. This is a kind of good situation for him to rocket. At this point, I don't know if he's going to be able to get any Expo locks, so I would like to see the rocket cycle literally right now.
And there it is. You ask, and Lucas delivers. 20-44 now to 16-41. Pressure going to start to mount here for Gariko, who has got his back up against the wall, already down 1 game, and definitely will lose that spell cycle race. So we'll see how aggressive he wants to get.
Log on top of the Dark Goblin Mortar and the Skeleton King, so great value right there. Skeletons on top of the cannon cart, perfect defense, 1 minute left. How will he want to defend this mortar? We do see the Fire Spirit cycled, and then we see the cannon on top, so I love that. He is going to try and get the rocket on top of everything. He does miss though, and so he does use the log, and now he has to really be worried about how these pushes are coming.
Miner goes to the back. Archer Queen gets turned around. Fireball going to push her away. Minions are on the tower. That's a great fireball. Lucas forced to use the ability to get the damage out, but then was not able to distract the minions. Now another rocket comes down. And, you know, we've talked about this time and time again. Expo really does seem to have struggles at the highest level, and I will say that this is doing a bit better, but it's only because of the rocket cycle. It has nothing to do with the Expo. So not within rocket cycle range or log rocket range. Lucas still needs to get a little bit more damage on tower. Miner goes to the back, is caught, so by the cannon. Fireball is in. We're going to game number 3, and that was a interesting game, AC. I don't really know what to say anymore when we see Expo. I'll be honest, I hate playing against it, and I hate playing it, but I do like watching it in competitive, but it doesn't really ever succeed competitively.
I do love watching it in competitive, but yeah, you're absolutely correct. Honestly, I mean, the matchup looks weird. Yes, you have the cannon cart, but really, you match up fairly well against it. You have the Skarmy, you have the minion horde, which will sometimes get value, but for the most part, you're getting, positive elixir traits with the Skarmy. The Dark Goblin isn't going to do well because you're defending on your side of the map. The Dark Goblin isn't getting the value that it often gets, where it gets, 5+ elixir on defense, and then it's something you have to worry about once it crosses the bridge. So you match up fairly well. You can rocket cycle. It comes down to early mistakes, which set him behind by about 1500 HP. In that matchup, you never expo offensively. You get your rocket cycles. Triple elixir is when you go with the 2 or 3 rockets at the very end, and he would have won if he played it correctly. I know for a fact that if he played this matchup again, he would walk away with a victory. He just did not play it perfectly in this one.
So you're chalking it all up to a bit early mistakes and then using his expos too aggressively early on?
Yeah, and I mean, also the fact that he didn't have enough elixir to defend. There was, at the end of the game, he tries for the log rocket to get the cannon cart off its wheels,
right,
but he misses. The log wasn't there to push it back far enough. Then, because instead of it being 8 elixir, or instead of it being 6 elixir where you have a login cycle, it is now 8 elixir, no login cycle, and the minion horde is going to run away with it because the miner in the back, you only have the fire spirit, no skellies to be able to take the aggro of the minion horde and bring it into the middle. Just a weird spot for him, and just a bunch of mistakes.
So even though you're saying that he should have won this matchup, and he could win this matchup if he just straight ran it back, if we just replayed what we just saw, even if it's against Gariko, he still wins it. But does that mean that you believe that Expo is viable in competitive, or do you think that just in this one specific matchup, it should have gone a different way?
I want to say there are certainly opportunities to use it, but I don't think it's viable in competitive. I think there's always a better answer. I think, I really don't like it being used, but I think in this, I think 50% of the time you get a solid enough matchup where you even might have the advantage, and then 50% of the time you lose. And I just hate decks like that in competitive.
Yeah, and I do believe the Rocket is the great equalizer in terms of that needing to be your big spell when you are running
Yes.
Expo, at least at this level. It feels like that's really the only way to do it. People are too good to allow those Expo connections, so what do? It's definite damage on tower, whether it's miners, logs, or rockets, obviously the strongest in the game. So going to game number 3 now, a good reset there for Grieco after game number 1. Obviously a very, very close one there. So Grieco almost, again, in a 2-0 situation, but because of that final seconds in game number 1, we are going to game number 3. I do wonder if Lucas would have ever played that Expo deck if this were the finals, like the grand finals. I just don't think he would, but who knows? I mean, again, he is one of the better Expo players out there in the world. I'm just thinking back in my mind, maybe the last 7 times that I've seen Expo it's lost, and maybe out of the last 10 times I've seen it, it's maybe won 1 time in the competitive scene. So here we go. That's enough hating on Expo, although I don't know if there's ever enough hating on Expo as we go to game number 3.
I will say the last time that I remember Expo succeeding, sending a little bit of love to the Expo, it was in the World Finals. Or I think it was maybe it was in the World Finals qualifier. I think it was either against Pompeo in the World Finals qualifier, like the last chance qualifier, or it was in the World Finals itself. I think it was in the World Finals itself by Asael.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, too, that's the one game that I'm thinking of in my mind also. So, like, in a year, we've seen, like, 1 time where it's really paid off. So here we go. Game. Okay, go ahead.
He could have made it the second time.
Doubled its win rate. And AQ gets on top of the tower because the AQ of Gariko's goes invisible and guards are, I guess, just a step late. So 2152 to 2196, even game here. And you guys look on the left side of your screen, basically the exact same cards unavailable. The only difference is arrows and fireball. So Lucas goes to Royal Giant here in game number 3. And Garrico.
This is a massive mistake from Lucas. He did not recognize that his opponent was low on Elixir. He could have got, not necessarily aggressive, but he should have just been playing cards, whether it even be a log cycle or the E-Spirit in the back or Archer Queen. I mean, he had so many opportunities to place a troop down. He had a 4 Elixir advantage and he squandered it.
9 Elixir leaked here from Lucas, 7 more than his opponent. And a really phenomenal point that you make there, AC, and I think squander is the best word to use with that Elixir lead. And that makes me think that maybe Lucas is gearing up for World Finals in terms of maybe not having someone in his ear, because that's something that your coach or analyst should be screaming at you, right? Letting you know, yo, you've got this big of an advantage in Elixir. You cannot leak right now. I've never played with a coach in my ear other than like a couple times, you know, I did like coaching with RF and stuff, but like, I mean, doesn't that seem like that's exactly what your coach is supposed to do in that moment?
Yes, that's exactly it. There's only so many things that coaches can do, really. You know, all these players are so talented. They're going to understand the matchups immediately. I think the only coach to ever explain a matchup to the player was actually for me, because it was like Royal Recruits versus RG, and he kind of like explained why I was losing when I was losing. And he's like, yeah, man, stop using the Goblin Cage here. And there was like 20 seconds left in the game. So yeah, I mean, basically the one thing that they are supposed to be doing besides, you know, counting, or actually is just counting Elixir.
And letting you know when you have that advantage. So Lucas got lucky on that last push. He had a great lightning come down, got the Hog Rider right as it spawned. It took the AQ off the board, and I believe also hit the Giant Skeleton. Nice use of the Electro Spirit there in the right-hand lane. One of my favorite interactions in the game is the Electro Spirit against a low HP Archer Queen, as it stuns her just long enough to where her ability cannot be used, and then the tower can get that damage in, usually for a phenomenal positive trade. Lucas leaking again here, 16 at 40. Now log EQ comes down to bring it down to below, or just above, excuse me, 1400. Now down to 1978 is Garrico's weakest tower, and the lightning comes in for Lucas. Great lightning value there once again. I think Garrico maybe thought the AQ was far enough away, not sure.
RG does not get thrown in front of the Archer Queen. I was wondering if that was going to be the method of choice to attack triple Elixir. Instead, Archer Queen gets taken out by the log after it takes out the guard. So an okay situation, and I like that he's using the Zappies in a different location. He could not afford to give the value that he gave earlier. And right here, 1200 HP to 1344. I think Lucas is content with trying to win by spell cycling, but I think Garrico's also saying the exact same thing.
Yeah, Lucas doing a really, really good job of making sure those Archer Queens are getting within range with the log and the lightning. And this time we see the Zappies right on top of the AQ, but AQ ready to go this time around. Ability pops, lightning comes down, 26 seconds remain, and now Garrico sees an opportunity to overload at the bridge. And there it is, high Giant Skeleton, Hog Rider behind with the AQ, and the Fish Boy. Does the Fish Boy thread the needle? It does. That was beautiful.
540, he just doesn't have enough. He needs the RG right now. We see the Archer Queen low, not going to be effective. Lightning will come down from Lucas, but that is going to be the end of his run. Garrico applying pressure perfectly. Archer Queen's outside of the lightning range. Giant Skeletons plopped at the bridge, and Hog Riders galore with the final 30 seconds, and the Earthquake cycle was too much for Lucas.
Yeah, for sure, Hog Riders galore, but I really was impressed by the Earthquake log cycle early from Garrico, just recognizing the situation he was in and never getting too aggressive with the Hogs. It was almost like the Hogs were always placed at the perfect time. Now, I will say that defense at the end from Lucas was phenomenal. I loved that the Fisherman placement and pull, just knowing the interactions, knowing where the Giant Skeleton was going to stay, knowing where the Archer Queen was, and knowing the path the Hog Rider was going to take, but still just was not enough. And I think you're absolutely correct in the terms of Lucas needing to get more RGs down, but I don't know, man. It was a tough situation to be in. The lightning cycle was very, very close.
Yeah, I will say with that, it made me smile when you said that, because there was one RG placed on the map. You can get away with that when you're running Graveyard against, you know, a bait deck, because you can try and spell cycle to win. There's other methods, but you cannot spell cycle when you're even on damage against a quick cycle Hog deck, because not only are they going to be able to keep up with spells and the damage that you get from them, but they also can just start throwing down hogs. You're using 6 elixir on nothing, on absolutely nothing when they place the Archer Queen up top. And that's what he started to do once he recognized the method of choice from Lucas. And then as soon as that happened, it was Giant Skeleton, Archer Queen, Hog. Yes, the Fisherman was incredible. It's able to yank it to the King instead of going to the tower and gets 0 shots. But that doesn't really matter. You still need more than that.
Yeah, and the adjustments mid-game by Gariko were phenomenal. You know, the Archer Queen just moving higher and higher up, moving to the left side, the right side of the bridge, or the bridge, and you know, it ended up being up high and in the center was the method of choice for Gariko, not able to get it logged back, and we saw that at the very end. You know, the log to push it back and the lightning on nothing. So Lucas does a really good job. Honestly, all of this tournament, other than week 1, because like you said, he was in Valencia, Spain. So he has a great run in his earlier weeks with an incredible win rate, kind of hamstrung by that opponent win rate, but he does secure his spot in the finals next weekend. And I guess the little cherry on top is he gets a little paycheck, and technically the Wildcard Open is the lowest prize purse of all 5 of our event days. So, you know, I guess that's the silver lining if you are Lucas, although I'm sure he wishes he was still in our finals. And oh my goodness, Mugi is playing 3M for AC on a Sunday.
We see the 3 Musketeers. Please let me get a good, please let him get a good matchup. He does use the heal spirit perfectly. Can't stress it enough. That was absolutely perfectly. And this is a pretty good opportunity. Gets the left side all the way down to 1962. Right side down to 2398. And Wallace is running Graveyard. Actually, this is a great deck choice from Mugi to be able to get this kind of matchup here.
AC casting through tears right now as his favorite player is playing his favorite win condition.
Come on.
And you know what? I'm glad you talked about the matchup, because I play both of these decks so rarely, and I run into both of these decks so rarely. The one that Wallace is playing is becoming the most popular graveyard deck. Again, it's like a new version of Splash Yard. Splash Yard will always be a strong competitive deck, or at least a forced competitive deck. People just love Splash Yard if they've been playing it for a long time, and this seems to be the new facelifted version. But yeah, in that matchup conversation, I don't play Splash Yard enough or 3M enough to know that this is a good matchup for Mugi, so we'll see if he's able to take that stat and take this game. 1962 is the lowest tower, as Wallace is setting up a Baby Dragon plus Ice Wizard push. We'll see if he wants to poison the pump or if he just wants to go all in, all out, send, and now he can get a poison down if he wants. There it is, the exact spot that I'm talking about. Gets the Princess Tower and gets on top of that Royal Ghost.
So one of my favorite plays to do with 3 Musketeers is pump in the middle like that, and then actually 3 Musketeers on the outside corner. It can take away all the skeletons, or you can have it take away, or, you know, do damage on the support troops. Right there, he elects to not use that method, and the tower gets all the way down to 487. Wow. So basically at this point, Mugi needs to win on this next push, or at least set himself up to be able to continue to attack.
Yeah, a little surprising there that he just opts to not do the method that you're talking about defensively on the graveyard, but then kind of doubles down on his mistake by putting his 3 Musketeers in the back. And that's a NATO to the side. Beautiful play there by Wallace, and this is what we've been seeing out of Wallace day in, day out, month in, month out, competitions of flying. He has been playing so well.
Yeah, I mean, Wallace played a perfect game. And right there, Mugi, that was a rough to watch. That was not played super well. Didn't get enough pumps up and just didn't defend properly. When you don't have a lot of practice with a lot of different matchups, 3 Musketeers can be played incorrectly very easily. You have to know when to give up the damage. You have to know when to get aggressive. Yeah. And right there, you know, at the end of the game, yes, you're going to be able to give up a lot of poison value if you go, you know, same lane, or you go a 2-1 split instead of the 1-2, but you can never do a 1-2 split in the middle at the end of a game, because your opponent can easily NATO opposite lane. Not only will you NATO opposite lane, and then it's just easier to set yourself up with an offensive push, and, you know, the offensive pressure ended up winning the game, but also when you move all the Three Musketeers to one lane, you can either A, poison, or B, just Skeleton King on it, and you're just getting positive elixir trades like that.
I loved your call out of the way to actually play the defense, because if I'm sitting here with my skill set and I go, okay, I think Wallace is going to wait to get the poison down on top of the pump, the Royal Ghost, and the Princess Tower, the idea of sneaking those Three Musketeers in the corner up high to the left-hand side, it just feels like it was a massive missed opportunity there by Mugi at the fault of not knowing this matchup well enough. I mean, that's when you chalk it up like that, AC, it feels like a no-brainer move. It feels like it's actually the only real play. So Mugi just maybe not well-versed enough with those 3M, didn't ever get a mirror down, didn't ever mirror a pump. So here we go. Game number 2. Wallace 5-1 on the day. SB was able to take one game off of Wallace earlier. Otherwise, he cruised through Yuya and has one game up here on Mugi.
Yeah, wow. It is really fun to discuss matchups and like how to play Three Musketeers. In fact, I'm not done yet. Give me another 10 seconds. If you're gonna pump in the middle, you do want to go on the 3-man on the outside, or 3M on the outside. But that's why I always like using pump in the back corners. Or not the back corners, the back on the inside tile placements, just because then you don't have to worry about that. Then you can Three Musketeers in the middle and start taking out support troops without giving too much poison value. You have to be very careful about using your pump. All right, I'm done. We can go to the next game.
It's okay. I love it. I love to hear it. I love the breakdown. And now we're seeing Wallace go to, and I just pulled up Wallace's profile for this exact reason. His deck versatility has been unbelievable, unrivaled almost from everyone else. And the Giant Skellies are going to kind of go head-to-head here at the bridge. But the high Giant Skelly from Wallace, I think that's far enough away. Yeah, wow, yeah. Perfect placement.
Yeah, that was beautifully placed, and Mugi might not have enough elixir. Miner on the inside tile. Archer Queen will be able to target it, so he should have probably placed it 1 or 2 tiles into the middle, and he's going to have to get aggressive, but to no avail. That Fisherman is going to be able to clean that up, and then he should be able to either A, bats on top, or snowball it off, and he does go with the option of snowballing it off. 1 minute, 12 seconds left. Beautiful skeletons on the outside, and a huge advantage for Wallace in game number 2.
Man, he is just playing on another level right now. Splash Yard the game before that we just watched, Mortar before that, Drill before that. He went back-to-back Drill games in 2 different sets. The only time he's lost today was with a Skeleton King, Inferno Dragon, Fireball, Arrows, Graveyard deck. So he's been doing it with Mortar, he's been doing it with Drill, he's been doing it with Graveyard. He's just been all over the place. And now he's going to Giant Skeleton Loon and up the tower early here on Moot.
33 seconds left. Giant Skeleton does get taken to 60%. And another Giant Skeleton plopped in the pocket. Bats are going to take the aggro of the Inferno Tower. A Loon placed, and he might give up. Okay, no, he has not going to give up. But this second tower is going down. He's doing everything that he can, but this is a bad matchup and an incredible deck choice from Wallace.
And such a unique deck choice here from Wallace. I don't think I've seen a version of this maybe ever. I'm not sure. It's just I love it. I love the innovativeness that we've seen out of Wallace here in this set and the way he's played through these days. And that's a 4-0 run against Mugi. He's played him yesterday and today, and Mugi has not been able to take a single game off of Wallace, and he's looking like a bad man, AC.
See, it kills me because I'm pretty sure this is the time of the stream where you say we're going to take another, quick 3-minute break or something, and then I have to wait another 3 or 4 minutes before we get more Wallace gameplay.
Yeah.
And just Wallace is so good right now.
And not to discredit Grieco. You look at what Grieco did, 2-1 against Hire, 2-1 against Morton, 2-1 against Lucas. So we are going to have an incredible grand finals for you guys with Grieco going up against Wallace. And I agree. I don't want to break because I just want to watch Wallace keep playing. I'm sure he needs a moment to reset his decks, look at what Grieco's been doing, and continue to give us cool new stuff. I love this deck choice. I love that it's one that we have not seen at all. In the entire month of competition at Royale Masters, we have never seen that deck, and Wallace busted out against our defending world champion. I just don't know what else to say about the Brazilian right now other than he looks incredible.
Yeah, another perfect set. And yeah, This is just magical from him.
Let's check in here with our bracket to remind you guys of the journey we've taken so far today. And it's all about the bottom left and the bottom right, working all the way to the grand finals. As I just talked about, Grieco went through higher, then Morton, then Lucas. Wallace was able to take down SB and then has not lost a game since. So we'll be taking a very, very short break here, guys, just to let you know this is now going to be a best of 5 for our grand finals. Don't move a muscle. We'll see you soon. Our grand finals are underway. It's going to be Grieco going up against Wallace, and both of them have done an incredible job this entire weekend. But Wallace does seem like a force to be reckoned with. There's about 1,000 of you guys joining us between YouTube and Twitch. We love that you are here watching Royale Masters. Make sure that you guys are subscribed to them here on YouTube. You go check out their Twitter, and of course, you guys are in that Discord for our finals coming next week. I saw a couple people asking in the chat, how do I join this tournament? Unfortunately, if you want to get a golden ticket now, you have to join that 6-stage event for CRL that'll be starting in just a few weeks. Yeah.
I have a question. What is that 6-week event called?
It's got to be on esports.clashroyale.com, right? Like, they got to be calling it something, and I'm just an idiot. But that is the only way to get a golden ticket now. And of course, 10 more golden tickets will be given out in that event. But our 6th and final community given golden ticket is going to be here at Royale Masters next weekend, 2-day event. We're going to see a lot of what we're just about to see, which is a best of 5. So in the grand finals for every single qualifier and the wildcard open, we're getting a best of 5. But next weekend for every single elimination game, and I believe it is double elimination. So every elimination set, will be a best of 5 set. So we're going to have a lot of action coming your way, a lot of great matchup discussions. You guys are not going to want to miss it. And of course, when you look at the 8 players that we have competing with Mugi, Wallace, Grieco, Lucas, Titone, Pandora, Schwatzen, and I got it, and Furkan, there we go. I got all 8.
There we go.
It's going to be incredible gameplay next weekend. So we're about to hop into our grand finals, just giving these gentlemen a couple moments to reset their decks, figure out what they want to do. And I feel like this is kind of asking a loaded question, but doesn't this feel like Wallace is set to lose? It feels like he's just been so dominant.
Yeah, you know, this is one of the easier questions you've asked me. This is certainly Wallace's set to lose, and that is obviously no knock on Grieco. I mean, unreal player. You know, he's been in the scene for the last 2 years, you know, last 2 or 3 years. He was one of the wonder kids where it's like, oh man, when he turned 16, you know, watch out. He's been finishing top 3 on ladder. He's been, you know, doing any competition where he's legally allowed to play. He's been, you know, performing with the best of them. But Wallace, I mean, the last couple years, he's been a great player. The last year, he's been an insane player. One of the top 10 players in the world. In my opinion, he's top 5 right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was gushing over Furkan throughout this tournament, and I really believe that Wallace is even more impressive. And Furkan put up, what was it, 27 points in the qualifiers?
Yeah, I mean, that's saying a lot when you're saying that Wallace has been more impressive, because you and I were just completely gushing about Furkan week in, week out. For the first 3 weeks of this competition, he put up almost double the points of anyone else. It was really, really an incredible showing from him. And the story for Wallace has been a very long one. You know, Pain Gaming back in 2020, he didn't exactly do what I think everyone was expecting him to do, but he was young back then, and it was a teams format. He still got 4th place in the world with Pain Gaming back in 2020, right? So 2 years later, 2 years of practicing, 2 years of streaming, 2 years of grinding, and you can see how much it's been paying off over this season and last season. You know, World Finals, he was able to get that 16th place spot. He showed up in most of our rounds last season. You know, some of them higher finishes, some of them lower, some in the 20s, some in the top 5. So Wallace is someone who has just been grinding, and I've been seeing people say that in the chat as well. Giving a lot of love to Wallace because it is where some love is due. But Grieco, like you said, on the other side of it, incredibly impressive player. I think Wonder Kid is a great word to use. There's been a handful of them that the moment they turn 16, everyone's just like, wait and see. I remember Mohammed Light was one of those people. I remember Mugi was one of those people. Some of the best players to ever touch the game. Ruben was one of those people. I remember back when he was getting recruited by Queso, everyone was talking about this Ruben kid. He's going to be so good. He's been in their, you know, D-League team showing how great he is. And they all came through and had incredible careers. Ruben obviously being a world champion. A lot of people say it's because of Ruben that Queso was able to take that world championship in 2020. So Grieco doing what a lot of people would hope for him to do. It's been just a little bit slower of a start. And same thing with Wallace. A lot of great successes, but you got to get to that top 0.0001% if you want to be the best in the world. And right now, Wallace really making a case for himself to get thrown in that conversation with, I would say, Samuel Basoto, Lucas, obviously Mugi, and Mo Light. It feels like Wallace is just right up there in that top 5, which is an ever-shifting, I'd say 2 through 5 and 2 through 10, and it feels like the number 1 and 2 spots have been kind of locked up for all of 2022 and 2021 for Mugi and Mo.
Yeah, I know when CRL was going on, there was a lot of, it was like, I forgot what the website was, but it was something where people were rating all the players, and they were saying tier A, tier S, tier B, tier C, and whatever. And it was a lot of fun talking about that, saying who's the best in the world, who's, you know, one of those players that might get dropped in the next year. And yeah, right now, I really believe before this tournament, I had Wallace in that high A range, and only 2 or 3 players were in my S tier. At this point, he's in the middle of the pack of the tier S players. Like, he has certainly propelled himself into that top 5 range. And yeah, it's so fun to think about. And honestly, it's so fun to think about, the top 25 players of this game, because now that it's open to everybody, there's no longer the, is it because of his team? Is it because of this? Is it because of that? And it's solely because of how good of a player you are.
Yeah, and I think, we're really seeing that here in 2022 with some of the players that have qualified, right? You look at Basoto, Mugi, Mohamed Light, and you're like, okay, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. But then when you look at Gans Aslan and someone like Arden Toas, who has really started to create an incredible career for himself. The era of everyone has been paying off. And to let everyone know, we do have an episode of 3 Crowns coming out soon where I sit down with community manager Max and talk to him a little bit about what he thought is working in the competitive scene, what he thought has been great about changes, the balance updates. It's a really cool interview. And when you look at the era of, which is something that I was asking him about, I think he's really, really pleased, as he should be, because still at the end of the day, even with all the different tournament formats, versions, what have you, the people that are going to World Finals, they kind of mirror what you would hope to see, and then also are showing us a lot of what you'd like to see with new players coming out. So we're only 35 seconds into the gameplay here. One E-Giant has already come out here for Wallace, so very aggressive early on, as we saw a cannon play defensively for probably a mortar that came out. So Wallace sees the mortars out of cycle, goes in with the E-Giant, and now is a lot of punishment for it. Perfect timing there on the ability.
Yeah, the ability will be able to get a few extra shots. Archer Queen gets the tower down to 12-14. And it's weird because it is E-Giant versus Mortar. I mean, just the fact that E-Giant is now E-Giant Mirror, Mortar isn't as scary, but at the same time, it's just as scary, if not scarier. I will say, Giant Skeleton is a card that I really believed was going to be a something that would cause the death of the E-Giant. And I don't think that's the case. I really think the Giant Skeleton, its DPS is so low, and it's just not healthy enough, where the E-Giant can just kind of walk over it. And we could see the double E-Giant in the right lane coming soon, paired with the either Earthquake or the Lightning. If it's the Earthquake, he will be able to take that right tower.
And everything you said just happened, right? So the Giant does a great job against the Giant Skeleton. The DPS from the Giant Skelly is so low that the E-Giant pretty much takes it off the board. Or, it does take it off the board. And then we see the Golden Knight played defensively along with that Tornado after we get the mirrored E-Giant down in the right-hand lane. Wallace did play it in the back instead of up high at the bridge, which maybe could be looked at as a small mistake just because there wasn't the pressure that you usually get from that instantly mirrored E-Giant. But that also means he can drop the third E-Giant now if he's looking for it in the left-hand lane. So we'll just see what Wallace wants to do as he sets up that Golden Knight for defense. He goes back down with E-Giant in the right-hand lane, 764, 1766. Grieco's been doing a great job getting good damage on tower with his Archer.
Yeah, the way he's playing this matchup is so interesting because he doesn't want to get aggressive. He goes in with the late E-Giant, the E-Giant to take, to take minor shots, not even trying to get aggressive right now. Cannon will come over the middle because he thought the mortar was going to be placed high. But it's also not the end of the world. The bomber stays alive because it's targeted onto the cannon, but the bats do take it out. And here we go. We finally do see the double or triple E-Giant push with the opportunity for more. Because he cycles the Golden Knight and he will have another E-Giant in cycle. Could be placed at the bridge on the left side. That's what I want to see here.
Yeah, I do too. And there it is. Perfectly called and perfectly played here by Wallace. That mortar damage on the right-hand side is insignificant. Bomber does target the mortar and pulls the Giant Skelly and will work towards that left-hand lane. So when you talk about placement and timing, it doesn't get much better than that. And the best thing for Wallace here is he can just go right back in with another E-Giant, especially because that miner is out of cycle. I don't know if Mirror Rocket NATO does enough damage. I think it actually does. So I think Wallace does think it does as well. So there's the Rocket. Now just needs the NATO to take out the tower. And he just need that NATO to take out the tower.
Oh
no,
my
HP,
goodness.
that's why he wasn't playing it. Oh my goodness.
Something had to be up, otherwise he would have cycled it immediately. That is so sick. So sick. 1 HP difference. And That is, oh, so unfortunate for Wallace.
Well, I know that a tornado at tournament standard does 58 damage now, AC. I have learned something today. The chat is reacting the exact way that you would expect them to. And, oh, man, that moment, the pause, there was a clear pause where Wallace was like, does Mirror Rocket NATO do enough? And he was doing the quick math, and he was holding, and he goes, I think it does. And he was off by one number. Miner goes to the back. Poison goes on the tower. Let's check out this replay. That is a fun one to watch. Here we go. E-Giant on the tower. Yeah, go ahead, AC.
Oh, man, the E-Giant does get the tower down to about 1,000 HP. One rocket plus a second rocket. Well, clearly, that's going to do enough. That is a level 13 rocket on the tower because of the mirror. And wait a second, he's got 3 elixir. He plays it, but it just you needed another one, Wallace.
You just needed one more HP of damage to be sent in. The mortar locks on, the miter goes to the back, the poison comes down the lane, and that was just an excellent finish for Gariko, who takes a big-time confidence-boosting win here in game number 1. You know, you were mentioning early on that because the mirror has become part of the E-Giant deck, you know, the mortar matchup isn't 100-0 like it used to be. And right there, we see Gariko really ride that line about as tightly as you can.
Yeah, and, you know, as hilarious as it is as a bystander, as unfortunate as it is, you know, if you're Wallace, really, he shouldn't. I mean, it's tough to know that amount of damage, but also if he plays a little bit slower and then he recognizes. I mean, it comes down to knowing your interaction, knowing how much damage, you know, a certain troop, a certain spell is going to do. He could have been able to figure that out if he, I mean, if he had it memorized, he would have been fine. But also, that was a scary amount of damage that he needed to get at the end of the game. And if he would have delayed and really thought about it, it would have made sense that he needed a little bit more HP worth of damage and potentially gone in with, you know, either a single rocket and then try to get the double rocket at the end. I mean, you can't do, I don't know. It's so tough, and that's why memorizing spells, especially when you use mirror, is so important.
Yeah, it really, truly is. And I can see the chat here. Morton versus Surgical Goblin, 1 HP. Wallace's phone is broken now, for sure. He threw his phone, for sure. I love you, Wallace. I feel guilty. So many good comments from you guys. Love to hear it. Love to hear the excitement about it. And now we're into game number 2. Wallace going back to the well of E-Giant going, I don't know how on earth I just lost my 1 HP, but it's not going to happen again.
Oh, that E-Giant does so much damage, getting the tower down to 1447. A brilliant bomber to take out all of the goblins from the Goblin Barrel. 2994 to 1447. We could see, I still think we're going to see a lot of E-Giants thrown down on the board. I will wonder how it'll affect the rest of the match. If he wants to try Rocket Cycle, which I don't really like. I like the idea of continuing to get somewhat aggressive with your E-Giants.
I agree, and I think that's exactly what Wallace wants to do, because the thing about the aggressive E-Giants is it makes the Mighty Miner kind of a non-factor, which is a really important part about continuing to control this game. So you saw right there, E-Giant walks down the lane, takes out 2 Dark Goblins, a Mighty Miner, cleans up the Goblin Barrel, and gets on top of the tower. Unbelievable.
Okay, there we go. He does get the rocket, and I will say, he will do enough damage with a rocket plus mirror, and I think he knows that now.
He's never going to forget how much damage a rocket, mirror rocket plus NATO does. And again, beautiful E-Giant up high. I love using the Golden Knight ability to clean up barrels. I don't think people do it enough when they're in this matchup. I feel like we see this double bait, mirror barrel combination a lot of the time. Their opponent will also have Golden Knight, and I feel like the Golden Knight dash always needs to be utilized to clean up those barrels when you don't have 2 small spells.
So there we go. We do see the E-Giant stuck in front. He can go in with the spell cycle whenever he wants to. 1 minute 50 seconds left, choosing to defend with a cannon. Plus the Mighty Miner just going to stack another E-Giant. Doesn't want to get too aggressive this time. Just wants to to defend how he believes is correct, and that is a lot of pressure, but almost no damage whatsoever. Brilliant defense right there.
Yeah, that was really, really clean. And now Wallace doing what Wallace has done so many times in his career. He's a very, very patient guy. He's not even worried about that right-hand tower, doesn't even want to get into that rocket cycle conversation. He's happy to change lanes late here as his E-Giants are really just controlling the board. And that's something that Wallace has always been an exemplary player in the terms of someone that can always reset even after tough losses. He's not a super emotional guy when things don't go his way, and that's really, really important when you're playing Clash Royale.
Continues to cycle the E-Giants, not trying to get the spell cycle whatsoever. We do see the dash right there, and we do finally see the rocket come down. 555, but not going to mirror rocket, just going to defend, defend, defend. He got the rocket that he was looking for, and this can put him in some weird spots.
He's never going to mirror rocket again in his career.
Yeah, so
there's the rocket coming down, and he just needs to do a NATO, mirror NATO.
58 plus.
I'm very uncomfortable
more than 58.
Once again for Wallace here. There's the last rocket that comes down. And you, me, and everyone else watching just holding their breath. Wallace, though, stays composed, stays patient, takes game number 2 after dropping game number 1. We are going to go to game number 3 here. Obviously, this is a best of 5. And really well played. I was talking about it during the matchup. I love when people use that Golden Knight dash to clean up barrels. It is a underutilized and very obviously strong play.
This is regardless if I'm a fan of someone's game, this could have been any random player whatsoever, and you have to feel so happy for him to win the way he did in game number 2. He was able to claw back. He had a great start. He probably should have got more aggressive at the end of the game just to finish off the game, but it's certainly okay. He gets the win in game number 2. And uses the same deck, so it's a big confidence booster to lose the way he lost, but then win the way he won. And so he's got to be feeling good, and both players probably feel really good after the first 2 games.
Really strong point that you're making there about running back the deck that you just barely lost with, and what that does for you and your confidence about your play style and how good you are with that actual deck. So I love that you point that out. I think it's very true. And as I was trying to articulate during the game, Wallace is just not a very emotional player. You see him celebrate pretty minorly at the end of big wins. But I think the most impressive thing, and this is kind of like Canario back in the day, and even Morton is pretty good about it, but sometimes he'll do like he'll get a little bit more emotive, but Wallace is, ice through his veins when he loses. A lot of times he'll just sit down, stare at his phone. He's thinking about what went wrong in that matchup, and he's able to reset in a very, very short window of time. And that's a really important thing when you talk about playing Clash Royale at the highest level, because there's players in the past, and I won't say their names because I really like all of these players, but there have been players in the past that you watch them get a bad matchup in game number 1, or if they're playing sets, like if they had a few sets to play that day and they get tilted in one game, it can really spiral the whole rest of their day. And this goes back to people like Diego B and RF, as we talked about in the past. AC, you have to have that composure, and Wallace has it in spades.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. As soon as you were saying you didn't want to list any names, like 8 names popped in my head, and I was like, oh wow, that's it. Yeah, you're right. I wouldn't want to say those names either. So yeah, just a great point right there, and absolutely calm, collected. That's the definition of Wallace. And yeah, fantastic first 2 games. E-Giant, NATO, and Mirror out of the way for Wallace.
Yep.
So NATO certainly isn't the overpowered card that it used to be, but still not having NATO as an option is certainly kind of scary as the rest of the set goes on, but only having Rocket as your big spell being gone is incredible for him. He has so much available.
Yeah, and then Gariko on the other side of it does not have Miner, Poison, Giant Skelly, Mortar, Snowball, and Bats. So, I think the most obvious thing that pops into your mind is that Wallace cannot go to the incredibly popular Drill deck. He doesn't have Golden Knight. he doesn't have NATO, and those cards are really, really important there. And also because he used Bomber, he could use a different popular dual deck. So we're going to hop into game number 3 here. We'll see what these guys want to come up with. The 16 cards on the left-hand side of your screen are the cards that are unavailable, 8 for each player respectively in the games that they won.
Both players leaking right now. 2:22 left in the game. And yeah, no. I really like the deck choices from both of these players in the first 2 games, because Poison and Snowball aren't really the 2 most broken spells ever, and Rocket and NATO, I love what they've done. I really feel like everybody took a look at week 1 and what happened to Adnan, and yes, Adnan was able to steal game number 5 with a great deck choice to win that week. But everybody saw what he did. He used too many cards, too many spells that were way too popular, and now we're seeing a lot more thought put into the first couple games.
Lucas was 2-0'd by Mugi in our 3rd place matchup there, so Mugi was able to bounce back after getting beaten 2-0 by Wallace. Just a little update there for our 3rd place matchup. Again, doesn't really matter other than just for the prize purse, as we're seeing a battle of emotes going on here between these 2 guys. I definitely love the emotes, even though I've turned them off in my games, but always love to see them in competitive.
I've done the same. So yeah,
I can't deal with it, man. I don't care how old I get, how long I've played. I just can't deal with it. So
I can't even deal with good games at the end of the games. So yeah, I get you.
Oh yeah, good game to you too, then, man. So Bowler in the back, could be GY, could be Loon Freeze, going up against Lava, which maybe Wallace will have more success with it than we saw players have yesterday. And even though Bowler Loon Freeze is just the deck in the world, it does feel like because of last year's World Finals, it's become kind of the Mugi deck. It's much better than winning a World Finals.
This is a very scary push on the left. I love how he set his pushes up. Skeleton King will take the tower down to 1233. Miner will go in the back. No Inferno Dragon in place. So the Mega Minion, if it gets to the tower, it's game over. If it doesn't, it could still technically be anybody's game. We are going to see a freeze, but it might be too late.
Flying Machine locks on, and Wallace literally does not take a lick of damage in game number 3. And I know we're going to have a little bit of time here, so we might as well run back maybe the last 30-ish seconds of that replay, just so we can take a look at how he sequenced that brilliant offense.
Yeah, I want to kind of push it back to 45 seconds, because there was something that I saw that I absolutely loved from Wallace, if that is possible.
Tasty's like, come on, guys. So is it 30? Is it 45? What do you want here?
I'm so excited to talk about this play if we can get this.
Yeah, I mean, also, go ahead.
I will say that that Jack's Archer Queen pop, or Air Surfer's Archer Queen ability the other day was on purpose to get it outside of the range of the Valk.
Oh yeah, you texted him about it, huh?
He actually texted me. He was like, "Thanks for noticing." I was like, "Yeah."
That's awesome. It also makes me happy that Air Surfer's going back and watching these broadcasts, especially when we're casting his games. You and I, big fans of Air Surfer, great dude, and that was one of the cooler plays we had seen. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get that replay or not, but you guys will have to go back and watch the VOD. Oh, it is coming. Never mind. So you Lava Hound players, you Lava Skelly players out there, watch this gameplay. So we're going to give you the final 50 seconds, and AC, I'm going to let you take this whole thing because I know that you were loving even how he built this first push that did not take the right-hand tower.
Yeah, so I want to start with saying this Skeleton King on the opposite lane is brilliant. He knows that his opponent is going to have to overextend with the freeze, and right here, this is the play. The Skeleton Dragons immediately after, because he was expecting his opponent to go in with the Bridge Inferno Dragon. The Skeleton Dragons would have been able to take it out. The Mega Minion would have been able to take out the Baby Dragon. But because he doesn't, he knows his opponent is going to have to overextend with the freeze on defense. And when that happens, the opposite lane pressure is going to be insane. He's going to be able to go in with the Skeleton King, pop its ability, Lava on the tower, and it's just too much. Fly Machine at the bridge will take the game. Just a brilliant way to set up the push. And the Inferno Dragon wasn't placed on top, and I think it was due to a really bad starting hand and a really bad cycle overall. But I loved the Skeleton Dragons to try and protect the Flying Machine.
It was absolutely perfect gameplay there. And, you know, you talked about having to play that chess match of thinking 1 or 2 moves ahead. Wallace was thinking maybe 5 or 6 moves ahead, knowing, I mean, that's the other thing about the deck that's being run. There's certain decks out there in the world, like 2.6, like 2.9 Expo, even like Lava Loon, where it's really easy because there is only one version of it that's pretty viable. It's really easy to go, okay, I know exactly the way that the opponent needs to respond to this. And based off the cards he's played, I already know what remaining cards he has and what will come out, where it'll come out. So the amount of mental gymnastics that Wallace was doing to figure out every perfectly correct move. I mean, Grieco just got floored. I mean, that was not even, I mean, again, 2 untouched towers by Wallace finishing in regulation is not something that you see a lot at the highest level.
Yeah, just a tough battle for him. I really, yeah, I think a lot of it could have been due to cycle and just unfortunate in general. We do see the attempted log to, you know, take out Skellies or the Electro Spirit or something. Instead, does place the Archer Queen. Now the Archer Queen won't get any value on offense, probably. I don't know if it should get 1 shot. Okay, it does get 2 shots on the Hog, but it didn't get that much value on offense.
So Hog EQ cycle going up against what looks like Royal Giant. Dark Prince does a weird leap on top of those Skellies, so does not have to do 2 swings, just the 1, so it takes care of the Inferno. Wallace is down 1 elixir and down about 1,000 HP. Perfect pull there with the Fish Boy. AQ placed as well. No Hog hits come in. Wallace knows that's the last thing that he needs is to go down by a mile here in single.
Archer Queen still gets the shot onto the tower. Wallace is going to be running an interesting Dark Prince variation. I really like the Dark Prince, and honestly, I feel like we haven't been seeing the Dark Prince a lot, and that is a great catch. Hog will not get a shot.
Yeah, but the Hog itself was a perfectly placed Hog that avoided the Dark Prince and kited it around. Zappies came down from Wallace to support, so really beautiful gameplay from both of them. And Poison does come down. I was going to say we might see Wallace's big spell here. And it is GY, excuse me. Fisherman going to come down low and on the left side. There it is to pull the Hog Rider to the center. And Hog does not get a shot there. And just like that, Wallace is in the lead.
And just like that, Rico takes it right back. So he is using the Firecracker variation. Usually, I'm not a huge fan. I know you aren't as a fan of that as well. But because Arrows is out of cycle, because you are using different cards, he certainly not only can get away with it, but it does make sense for him to be using that version. Fire Spirit will be able to splash onto the Archer Queen as well, and this should be able to easily get shots on tower. Dark Prince used to try and have the Firecracker not get splash damage. It is going to work, but a good push for Grieco right there. And Wallace is going to need to turn up the pressure. Otherwise, you know, Grieco, he has full control right now.
Really nice use of the Skellies there to clean up that giant skeleton. Inferno Tower putting in work. 1488 now to 1089. This Archer Queen will not get a shot. Hog Rider does come behind Valkyrie with a sliver of HP. No Fisherman coming down, so instead he goes Dark Prince plus Zappies. 1089 to 1488. Wallace going to probably sit back and maybe get some poison value here. Reset for his defense before he tries to get another graveyard in.
Yeah, and I really like the idea of not using Giant Skeleton at this point in time. I feel like the Giant Skeleton is giving too much value to the Firecrackers. It's allowing it to stay on its side of the board. The Inferno Towers get placed because of it. I would actually love to see just Dark Prince's cycle, just Zappy's cycle. And right here, Hawk gets another shot. I think the Giant Skeletons are losing him the game.
That's a really interesting point that you make, and I think I agree with you there. Dark Prince now cycled in the back for Wallace, so maybe he's listening in. Now a Giant Skeleton up high, but that is not going to give much value to that Firecracker. Great poison there to get on top of the Inferno, and Wallace may be able to create something here. High Valkyrie doing a good job. Zappies are behind, though. And an Inferno up high will not do great against those Zappies. EQ used here defensively. Wallace trying to make something happen in the final 20 seconds.
Fisherman to yank the Firecracker, but that Firecracker got so much value. Zappies placed at the bridge. Firecracker again just placed and gets so much value. Bar Barrel not cycled at the bridge. It's just whether or not he can get some skeleton shots, and I don't think it'll happen.
Perfectly placed Firecrackers time and time again. And yeah, I don't love this version anymore. I loved this version before. I actually think I got my trophy high playing that deck, even though normally I would say that about Mortar. But that was a really, really great recognition of exactly what you talked about, AC. You can see the matchup conversation is so heavily in favor of Grieco, even with the sample size of just 14. It's a 79 to 21% matchup, which is never a spot you want to put yourself in. But because the arrows were out, and because the AQ had already been used, the Firecracker is a brilliant pull there. And we saw so much great splash damage getting on top of tower there. I do love the Firecracker. Let's not get it twisted. One of my favorite cards in the game. I just haven't seen this version working out well, but if there's no arrows, works out great.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I really do believe that Wallace certainly did not help his case by cycling the Giant Skeletons the way he was cycling. I think it would have been much better to cycle Dark Princes, even when you're giving Earthquake value. The thing is, you know, you can get away with cycling the Zappy sometimes on defense because he's using the Earthquake on defense every single time for the graveyard. So he doesn't want to be in a position where he can't Earthquake defensively. So you can get away with cycling those kind of troops. Instead, the Giant Skeleton not only gets taken out by the Inferno Tower, but the Inferno Tower stays alive for more Firecracker value and for just Valks on top.
And we've seen players in the past use the 3 Zappies cycled to one side to bait out that spell, right? Because you really, when you see 3 Zappies behind a Princess Tower and you have EQ and Log, you just go, all right, that's a perfectly good trade for me. I get some good tower damage in, and I don't have to worry about the Zappies counter push. But that bait aspect of it is something that we didn't see Wallace try really either. He really wasn't trying to get that Earthquake out of Grieco, and I can't speak to whether you are correct or not, but I trust you. You know, I believe you in terms of the Giant Skeleton wasn't working. So at least try to change it up a little bit and get those Dark Princes cycled in the back. That way you're not giving as much splash damage. And also, like you're talking about, who knows, maybe it will get an EQ out on a Dark Prince just because, or a Log will come out early to knock the shield off and stop the charge. But none of that's going to happen on a Giant Skeleton. You're never going to EQ a Giant Skelly if you're worried about a graveyard coming down the lane.
Yeah, absolutely. Overall, I do have to say Grieco played a phenomenal game. I really think that maybe instead of Firecracker, you know, players can start using archers instead.
Okay.
That was a slight variation a while back. And yeah, I feel like Archers is just a lot smoother, and it would have certainly helped with this matchup overall. But yeah, is able to take game 4, and we have had some game 5s. I feel like the last 2 weeks it only got to game 4, so it's nice to get back into that game 5 momentum.
Yeah, I mean, this is really what the Royale Masters duel format is all about. So let's take a look here at what Grieco cannot use. He cannot use Log, he cannot use EQ, he cannot use Hog, Valkyrie, or Inferno Tower. So those are some of the biggest cards. And then also Fire Spirit and Skellies, right? Even though they're both 1 elixir cards that can be subbed out for something else, they are so popular that it is something that you need to make note of. And the other cards that cannot be used are going to be Poison, Snowball, Guards, Giant Skelly, AQ, Minor, Mortar, and Bats. And then when you look at Wallace's responses, his biggest spells that are missing are still pretty small. When you talk about it being Rocket, NATO, and arrows. Those are the only 3 spells that Wallace can't use. Oh, and mirror. And then in terms of champions, he cannot use the giant skeleton. Wow. Even now, even when there's no reason for me to do it, he cannot use the Skeleton King, and he cannot use the Golden Knight. So we might see an Archer Queen again here out of Wallace in game number 5. I know that's a lot of information to break down, and if you're not looking at it 8C, it's probably hard to quantify all the things that I just said. But are there any decks that kind of scream out to you right now based off of what is missing or what is not missing? The fact that E-Giant has already been played and Inferno is out for Gariko is something that's really nice for both of them, honestly. They were able to pick up wins respectively without that happening in a matchup. But is there any other deck that you think would be a good pull from either of these guys at this last game?
It's interesting. So one thing, so the opposite of what you're saying, usually it's like game 3 or game 4, and it's like, oh man, Royal Hogs is going to be the perfect response. No Fireball, no this, no that. But both players have Fireball at this point in time, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, yeah, so Royal Hogs is not going to be the answer that I really lean on. You know, Hog EQ. I mean, I like Hog EQ from
Wallace.
Yeah, from Wallace.
Or maybe Bait, because his opponent doesn't have Log. Valkyrie, he does have Barb Barrel. Yeah, it's always so tough. I mean, this is why I don't envy analysts, especially in these best of 5s. It becomes very, very difficult because you will start to see, as we just saw in that previous game, really heavily weighted matchup conversations. Whereas usually in the best of 3s, I think a worst case scenario, you'll see like a 70-30, like absolute worst case, and that's usually immediately a game loss. Whereas a lot of time you kind of live in that 60-40 range. So when you're down to this many cards being eliminated, you're looking for that 70-30, 80-20 matchup. We'll see if Wallace can make it happen here.
And so we do see Bait up top. So that is going to happen for Greco. Wallace, on the other hand, could be running RG. We do see the Dark Prince. We do see the Fisherman. Definitely looking like it's going to be Bait versus RG.
Yeah, and the options that Wallace has, it's really good. He has the Electro Spirit. Obviously good he has the Log. Dark Prince should be a good tank against that Mighty Miner if he needs it.
Dark Prince placed above the left Goblin. I'm pretty sure if he would have placed it under, it would have had one less shot on the tower. Could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain that would have been the interaction.
Game 5. Bragging rights on the line as Lucas, Mugi, Wallace, and Gariko have all ensured their appearance next weekend. Nice Keep Tower activation there with the Dark Goblin. Log going to clean everything up. Oh, actually does miss the Dark Goblin, but Zappies plus Dark Prince are there. 2257 now being the lowest tower, with this Dark Prince getting kited around the board. Does get a connection, though. 2705. That's a big hit there for Wallace.
Yeah, as we head into double elixir, potentially could get easier, potentially could get more difficult. Just the way Bait is and the way RG is, like, both of these decks get just change once we hit double and once we hit triple. So we do see the aggressiveness. Hunter finally played on top of the Goblin Barrel. Beautifully played. Yep. Exact right timing, exact right placement. No shots.
Exactly what Wallace wants to do. Save the Log for either the Dark Goblin or that second barrel and use that Hunter to clean up the first one. You always want to make sure you can use your cheapest and, I guess, less effective response on the first barrel so you don't get punished by the second one, and that's exactly what we're seeing right here. Dark Prince comes down on the first barrel, no second barrel comes in because the delivery has to come down to stop the RG. 2 RGs come in, and I wonder if Rico maybe overextended himself a moment ago. We'll find out. Heat Spirit going to come down to reset this Mighty Miner. That's exactly what Wallace is looking for, and now a bunch of shots coming in.
Beautiful job not overextending. I'm sure he wanted to get the Fireball out, but it just wouldn't have got the value that he needed. Hunter, again, placed on top, but a little bit late right there. Yeah. So he will give up a little bit of damage, 1632 to 1784. delivery can be one of the most brutal responses to any of your pushes. So we do see him delay and not go in with the RG push here.
Yep, and that's a really, really great call and a really smart play there by Wallace. Giving that Royal delivery value time and time again can be incredibly frustrating. Wallace ready to go that time, completely mitigates it with the Zappies plus the Electro Spirit, and yes, that is a 5-for-3 spend. But you see this great counter push coming down the lane. He could use the log, but he's, again, being very, very patient, not too worried about that Dark Goblin. He'll deal with it when it gets closer, and there you go. High Dark Prince, and Wallace is in the lead.
So because we haven't seen the last card, it is looking like it could be Rocket. So he has to be very careful about that. Hunter, is it placed correctly? Not entirely, still gets the shot off fairly quickly, but the tower down to 15-12 because the Hunter was delayed by just a half second.
And I'd like to see, once we get into triple, not the first barrel, but maybe the second barrel thrown, or the second time he throws barrels, actually is the better way to put it, to then throw the rocket with the barrel to try to find the Hunter. But doing it on the first one right there was not the right play, because the Hunter wasn't back around and the Dark Prince shield would have taken care of it. So we'll see. He does go Hunter to the back. This time it is timed perfectly. No spell comes down. But as you said, AC, I'm sure Wallace is really thinking about the damage from that rocket. Fireball goes on top of the Dark Goblin. RG goes to the cannon. Dark Goblin connects on the right-hand side. The Princess Tower is locked on. RG gets a shot. That's a huge shot there for Wallace. And now he should be able to get another Royal Giant down. No, he goes Dark Prince instead. Here comes the double barrels.
Fireball needs to come out on defense, and that's exactly what we see. Dark Prince does get taken out by the delivery, and here we go. We do see the rocket. We will see the potential mirrored rocket. No mirrored rocket, but that is going to be a lot of pressure. He needs to get damage right here.
Nice Ice Spirit freeze there. Fireball comes down top of the Dark Goblin. Great plays there, and now enough time for another rocket to come down. Did he get it in time? He did.
Oh my.
Final second lands. It looked like the timer had already tipped to 4. It's 4 seconds for a rocket to fly. And Gariko is the champion of our Wild Card Open in a beautiful 5-game best-of-5 against Wallace. And I know we both thought Gariko was the underdog going into this set, but my lord, has he had a great day. Able to take down Hire, Morton, Lucas, and Wallace. That is an exceptional Sunday.
And just an insane set win overall. Gets a 1 HP victory, gets a 1 second victory. I mean, 2 of his 3 games are some of the most incredible victories we've seen in competition in a very long time. That graphic actually right there is also a great victory. Inferno Towers were placed perfectly. I think he only ended up winning by like 150 HP. Grieco does not believe in winning easily, but he does believe in winning overall.
And that's the matchup that we saw previously to this very last game, which again was a very substantial matchup favor for Gariko. And that last game was really, really great. I loved the decision making. He didn't go in for double barrels too regularly. He picked and chose his moments and was always ready to defend.
Yeah, that matchup, or that deck overall, is so difficult to play.
We were just talking about it. Yeah,
I talked about it with you on the break. I would show you guys my phone and my battle log, but my phone is cracked mightily, and I don't want people making fun of me for that. But yeah, that deck is so difficult to play. You want to get aggressive, but not too aggressive. Do you delivery plus mirror? Do you cannon plus mirror? Do you ever use mirror? Do you have the elixir for it? There are so many different ways to play it. It's certainly one of the most interesting decks when it comes to matchups, when it comes to actual gameplay itself, because usually there's no clear answer on how to play it, and usually sometimes you can get a good matchup, but a lot of the time you are battling straight 50-50s, and it's the better player wins.
So we have our 8 players and probably their seeding based off of points and how they finished here in our wildcard open. But let's take a look first here at our playoffs format. It's going to be a little bit different than what you guys have seen this entire run, because we are in the playoffs now next weekend. $25,000 golden ticket ready to go. And here we are. Top 4 from qualification points, top 4 from wildcard open. We are back to double elimination for you guys. We know you love double elimination. We know the pros love double elimination. And the added little piece of fun here is that all of those elimination matches will be a best of 5 game, just like we saw. So I'm sure we will have so much Clash Royale action for you next weekend. Remember, winner receives the golden ticket for that pass to World Finals. And Tasty Bacon was able to tell me you will not have to join in the Clash Royale League qualifiers. That's literally all it's called. I made it so difficult for myself. You will not have to join those Clash Royale League qualifiers if you get that golden ticket next weekend. And of course, AC, I know you got it memorized, but we got the graphic just in case. We got $25,000 to give away next weekend.
Wait, I can do it before. Okay, we have $10,000 plus the golden ticket going to the grand champion, the winner of the playoffs. Second place will, I tried stopping myself. I was thinking about it for the last like 5 minutes, ever since you said it first. Second place will walk away with $6,000, $3,000 if you finish top 3. And you know what? You battled. You worked your way through this difficult barrage of opponents. And then you ended up losing every single game. That's okay. You still will walk away with $700.
Yeah, not bad, but obviously that $10,000 in the golden ticket is really where you want to end up. We do have our 8 players that have qualified. Here they are. Furkan with 27 points. Nice memory there. Titone with 18. Pandoro, 15. Schwatzen with 12. And those were 1 through 4 based off of qualification points. And then you look right here, 1 through 4 in terms of placement at our wildcard open. Rico, Wallace, Moogie, and Lucas. So heavy hitters in all 8 of these spots vying for that final golden ticket given out by the community. And what a great event this has been. It is not over yet. Royale Masters still has 1 more week to go, the most important week of all. So follow along with Royale Masters on Twitter, join their Discord to get into that conversation, and make sure you are subscribed here on the channel. This is exactly where we'll be going live. Same time, same place, next weekend. AC, we got our top 8. What are your thoughts, my man?
Let's see. So 5 days is 120 hours. So we're looking at like 138 hours till the weekend starts. So I'm gonna figure out something to do with the 135 hours. I don't know. I might go to the gym once or twice, and then other than that, probably just like make some food or something.
So AC is going to do 2 things over the next 5 days before we get back into the action here at Royale Masters. For everyone running this competition, Tasty Bacon, Dawson, our incredible admin team, I'm Andrew Guy, that's Joshua AC Sure, and we will see you guys next week. We're giving away that golden ticket, 25 grand, to one of those 8 exceptional players. And remember, as always, keep on clashing. See you next week.